Good morning, folks. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is in your neck of the woods. Good to see you. I am your Sensei Al Bob, your griot, tell you a story. And welcome aboard to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And I've been having some pretty amazing dreams since, I don't know, last week. I invited you all to come join dream time when you go to sleep. And I've had some pretty amazing dreams. The first amazing dream I had was waking up and starting my day like I always do with a shower and make breakfast, and then I went to the deep green and started puttering around. And I usually spend most of my day just sitting on my deck, looking on how beautiful it is, right? Especially if it's a sunny day. Right, today is a cold, dank, rainy day, and it'll be this until it's not. And that's the beauty of here. It's like Ireland, you know. Wait a few minutes and the weather changes. And that's because we're right on this interesting line between the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Appalachian, and where two different tectonic mountain ranges stand next to each other like two pillars, two legs. And across it and through it are many, many, many um, ley lines, energy vortexes. And, you know, that's what this place is. And so the guys who set it up, they must have realized that, but it's on the side of a mountain. So your average person wants to build a house, ain't going to build it on the side of a mountain. Like this, my neighbor's house here. The people who built this 30, 40 years ago, um, you know, basically spent half the cost of their house on the foundation. Right? And they did a good job. It hasn't fallen off the mountain yet. But it's like a tree house. It's like surrounded by trees, like going down the side of the mountain. So you don't really get a view. The only guy who gets a view is the guy who had the lot at the tippy top. And who wants to be up there? It's like being right in the wind shear of it all. Whereas I bought the least appreciated lot, which was the flattest, right? 3 acres that was pretty much flat. I mean, it's at the bottom of but it's pretty much flat, right? So I found a guy who was a good excavator, and he had time on his hand, and he kind of liked me, so he didn't really rip me off. And he's pretty good because he is a bit of a rogue. And you got him. Come on, he's terrible. Well, he's really good at what he does. It's just the fact that he starts so many jobs, he never completes them well. And luckily for me, when he started this, he had nothing to do. And I had some cash, and I didn't pay him all at once. I just kept doling it out almost every day. I saw him, I would give him a little bit. So brought him back. He did a 98% really good job. Towards the end, he got another job, so he kind of, he passed me on to somebody else, an old guy. And that guy did finished up good, right? So overall, it was a good job, right? And a good price. And I got a really, really, really nice sculptured. It's like an art piece, my lot. It's like, and I've shown it to you, and maybe if the sun comes out later, I'll take my phone, then walk around a little bit because it's really turning out nice. But anyway, so I went down there and sat on my deck, and I was having a cup of coffee, and I saw this thing pop out of the sky. It was not there, and then it kind of, boop, and it kind of circled my little um, part of the holler, and it was way high up, maybe about 10,000 feet when it popped out, and it came down, and it wasn't anything like a ship or a car or George Jetson or anything like that, but it was a shimmer. You could tell the difference between the sky. Hey, buddy. Uh, yep. So it's more than puppies and pink unicorns and bunnies, right? This what's going on is more than that. Oh, and it's more than the pandemic or the scamdemic. Um, Good old. You send me some really good stuff, bud, and I want to thank you for that. All those nice little links that you send me, and I'm sure you're watching people like Max Igon on Crow House, and he's and he's been at this for like 12 years. I've been at it for two. He's been at it for 12 or longer, and uh, he um, basically said it right. This is a spiritual opportunity, And about 11 months ago, hey, we're at a window of opportunity, right? And no one even asked what's the freaking window of opportunity, and so I felt something was coming. And when I get that, it's all in my gut, right? And right now I am constipated, right? And I didn't have the money to buy all the medicines that my doctor says I should take to stay alive. And anyway, so for at least 3 or 4 weeks, I didn't take any of my medicines, and I, kind of, and I didn't have money to go out to restaurants, and the restaurants were closed, and so I ate a more protein, vegetable based diet, and then I you know he actually said, go to this pharmacy and your medicines are waiting for me. I found a place that could get you your medicines, and the first 90 days is on them, and then they'll put you on this thing and it'll be fine. So I went and got them and took them, and yeah, my blood sugar went down a little bit, and I didn't do a blood panel, so I'm not quite I don't have a blood pressure cuff, but I went by him, and yeah, it was okay. It had gone down a tad. Wasn't that bad to begin with, and so anyway, but it turned the little guys in my gut a little more, and so when I get this kind of constipated, normally that medicine makes me have the runs, but I'm constipated and I'm not really eating much. And I'm drinking smooth mousse tea, which usually makes me, but I'm not. And so when I get constipated, it's one of my little spidey senses that tells me something's afoot, right? And now I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and once it really gets warm and I move into green, the deep green, you won't be hearing from me that often, not like 3 times a day now. And the algorithm, lets maybe 3 p. It's interesting. It shows on my little screeny things there. Let's see, plant fiber is key. Yep, yep, yep. So I'm doing that. But it's more on a spiritual sense, meaning that it's like like I said, one of my spidey senses. Something's afoot, and I don't know if they've got martial law going on in New Zealand, but seems so in Australia, meaning they're arresting people for walking in the park. It's like really, and in America, there are a lot of people who, are really, what's his name? Carrot Head's, um, clan that are, going up in front of their legislatures and saying, hey, this ain't right, and beeping the horns but in the United States, in Florida and Tennessee, not Tennessee, but Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, um, and they were all black Baptist churches, not all, but most of them. These ministers were having, church in the parking lot. They would get a little gizmo. I don't know if you've ever gone to a drive-in and you turn your radio to an FM spot, and so you can buy those things pretty cheap off the internet, where you can send out an FM signal. And that's basically what walkie-talkies are, and you can turn to that frequency on the dial. It's usually at one end or the other that's not used too much, and you can turn to that thing, and then the preacher can talk, and you can hear it over your your car radio, and you keep the windows closed, and you're socially spaced by 12 feet normally, and you're in your car anyway. So there was a Baptist church where and this was a town in Mississippi that was poverty ridden, lots of drugs, lots of crime, right? And 20 police cars showed up, and 40 policemen came out and arrested everyone and gave everyone $1,000 fine, and locked up the minister and took him away. And at that time, there were 4 or 5 drug murders downtown on the corner, and the police were arresting the people in the church. Right? Well, that was going on. Yep, it's definitely retarded, and so and who to believe? Is it a bioweapon? Is it just the seasonal flu? Because Aunt and me came out and said 2 million Americans were going to be dead. At the beginning of the lockdown. But now the statistics are looking like maybe somewhere between 20 and 60,000, which is your basic average flu. Trust your heart. Yep, exactly. And that's what this little thing is wake up, trust your heart, pull the curtain back like Toto did, and see the old fart there moving the wheels and pushing buttons. And instead of getting all riled up, just look at them like, really? Really? You're going to do this now? Like I said, this is a spiritual opportunity for you to be who you are, who your soul is, right? And not be some, oh, I have to follow the rules. Oh, whoa, whoa. So that's pretty much it. And, I'm going to go take a nice hot shower now. And it's still raining, so I'm not going to go out until the rain stopped, which is supposed to be around 11. So it's now about 7:15 Eastern Standard Time. And I thought this would be a good time where other folks on the other side of the earth could pop up. So, buddy, what's it like there in Tasmania? And are you in a rural or small town or a urban setting? Are you like near Christchurch, or are you further away? Because New Zealand has some amazing, all you have to do is watch the Lord of the Ring movies, and that's all New Zealand. It's like, whoa. They got mountains, they got beaches, they got deserts. It's a really pretty amazing place. So tell us, bud. Am I even correct by saying you are in New Zealand? Let's see. I am a New Zealander, not Or Tasmania. Yes, Tasmania is totally a different place. That's like almost the South Pole. That's how I got deported from Australia. I had been in, I went to Australia on a tourist visa of like 6 months, and I ended up being there 3 years. And the whole time, pretty much, I worked for the freaking Australian government. So when they finally, so I was at this place in Tasmania. It's called the Gordon Ridge, where the Hume pines are, the tallest trees, the oldest trees in the world. And they built a dam in this valley and flooded the whole valley. And it had like, 30,000 Hume pines. And there was no way of getting that lumber out. And the trees were so big, they couldn't cut them down. So they just flooded it. So when I landed there and then, flew to this site by helicopter, we went over this gigantic lake, and it was covered on top of the lake were little Christmas trees. Right? And my little spidey sense were hearing the trees scream because on the southeastern coast of the South Island. Okay. Is that a big city or just a nice little town? And what goes on your little island? Big industry or farming or just people hanging out? Because Tasmania, the majority of the people in Tasmania were old farmers and artists because the Tasmanian devil, right? It's not an animal. It was the Aborigines, and they were a tribe that controlled time and space. So but by the time the white people picked up their gun to shoot them, they were gone. It wasn't like the Wamajir who let themselves get shot in the head. These people, and they would do little trickster things to the white people, and so white people got so annoyed that they burnt that part of the island down where they were and forced them all to the ocean and then shot them in the head. And the first time I went to Tasmania was to visit a friend's aunt who was an artist. And we land and we go into the capital city, and there was a statue in front of the Natural History Museum of not, and I found out that inside the museum there was a statue of this Aborigines person holding a baby, right? And inside the museum was the stuffed woman, and there's a bullet hole, and this side of her head is like kind of putty in there, and the baby too had a bullet hole in his head. So that's kind of what it was. So when the first time I went there and we visited this old lady who was quite nice, my wife and I, she, we had a little tiff. We went to bed with that little tiff, and then we both had this nightmare that we were that lady, the native woman getting shot in the head, not the old lady. And when I woke up, it was a beautiful day, but man, the nightmare, I couldn't wake up, and I just kept seeing myself get shot in the head and fire everywhere and falling in the water, my baby dying. And I woke up, and every muscle in my body was like, oh my God, this hurts. And we crawled downstairs for breakfast, and the old lady looked at us and said, "Oh, you've had the dream." And we said, "What?" She goes, "Oh, yes, you two were out of sorts yesterday, and you went to bed angry, and then you had that dream, right? You were that woman, that native. You should go to the museum and see her in reality. Um, you know, she has a bullet hole in her head, and that was you, right? You kept dying and coming back and dying, and then with the fire and your baby dying and dying and dying and dying. And yep, and that was, they killed all those Tasmanian devils, and they're still haunting them. So about a year and a half later, I had been working for this electrical engineering company to be, my buddy. When I didn't have any work, he knew this guy, and I got a job there. The guy talked to me a little bit, said, "Yeah, you know what you're talking about. Yeah, you can work here." But all the other engineers were white shirt, black tie, black pants, black shoes, slide rule on their belts. And me, I look like this, right? And I would freak them out because I wouldn't do, I could do the job better because I had been out in the field. I had been building things that they were designing. I say, that ain't going to work. You got to do it this way. Well, but the book says. And but my experience came from the field, and so after about a couple of weeks, my boss said, you can't work here. You're freaking these guys out, and there's a lot of them, and only one of you. But I like you, and I got a job for you. And I go, what's that? He goes, well, we do these gigantic jobs, and they did like hospitals and airports and you know power systems and transmission lines and dams and factories and big complicated things, $1 million jobs, multi-million-dollar jobs. And he goes, because I don't get that last check, and the last check is usually bigger than almost the other two checks combined. And a lot of, especially the government and big business, they keep you hanging. I'm actually a little guy. Yes, I'm good at what I do. That's and we're here, and that's why we get all this business. And I keep getting more business, so I make money. But a lot of people owe me money. I'm going to make you the punch list guy, and I'm going to send you to all those places, and they're all like those guys. White shirt, black tie, black pants, slide rule, and you'll drive them crazy. And you will say, well, I'm the punch list guy. I'm here to, finish the job to get that last check, and until my boss gets that last check, I'm not leaving. And so, I don't think I lasted more than a week at any of those. And he would give me a nice hefty check for doing that, because he would, get that check for, somewhere between $1 and $20 million. So he was very happy that I went and, was me and forced them to give him the check. So that was, that allowed me to do all this other stuff that I didn't have to have a 9-to-5 job. It enabled me to be part of the Circus Oz. It gave me the opportunity to be part of the avant-garde theater of Australia. And my wife really loved it. And it made, got me involved in all kinds of social, spiritual, political things, and got me to see all of Australia, working for the Australian government doing ethnography on this Aboriginal tribe. So, and we were already antsy to Don wanted to go back to, American life. She loved being in Australia. She loved getting all the attention. You saw that picture of her being out in the middle of nowhere, and she was happier than a clam. So, she was happy being there, but she didn't want to stay there. And so, I really wanted to make her happy. So, let's see. God have mercy. Yep. What and yep. So the last job and what got me kicked out of Australia was we went to look. He designed the power system for this dam, right? And it was real high tech. Most dams up until recently, the armatures of the big dynamotors have been alternating current, but once they went digital, they were allowed. They could use direct current that, in a certain way, gets rid of a lot of problems, right? And allows it to be transmitted long distances, right? So this was, at least in Australia, the first trial of this technology, and this guy, he designed it, and I was the punch list guy. So I land at that airport in the capital city, and they whisk me into a helicopter and fly me across there, all way down south, where it's already starting to look like Antarctica, way down south, right? And we land, and we're flying over this. It looks like Alaska, right? Trees everywhere, mountains covered in trees, and and there's this dam, and there is this big lake, and the lake is covered with Christmas trees, and it's the tops of these Hume pine trees that are like 300 feet high, and that means their root ball is like 1,000 years old, and the tree's as wide as this house, and it's 300 feet high, and it's not going to die anytime soon. So the little trees, or Christmas trees, are greener than green, and it's covering the whole friggin' lake. And you know, I land, and I'm like, kind of, what was that, right? And the guy meeting me says, "Oh, that's he explains that they built a dam to flood the valley. Those were trees; they couldn't get them out of there, so they just left them there." And I said, "They're so green." He goes, "Oh yeah, it's going to take them like 300 years to die." And I said, "So down 300 feet, or is their root ball? The pressure down there must be, at least 1,000 atmospheres." "Oh yeah, they're being crushed, and it'll take 300 years for them to be crushed to death. Like unbelievably painful." And I could hear the trees scream, inside. And I was feeling just like I am feeling right now, constipated. So I went in there, and I had my cowboy hat. I mean, I was dressed up, I had a dress looking like this, right? And I had a beaded handbag that had a kangaroo on it, said Australia. The guy looked at that. He goes, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, that's my briefcase." And he was like, and so they thought I'd be there, and just sign the paper and get back on the helicopter. But no, I was going to go through the punch list. I said, "So where's the punch list?" And so they, came out with a tablet. This is like the 1970s. It wasn't like the tablets we know, but it was, so these guys had some serious advanced technology. So, and the other amazing thing was that it was lit, by light that you couldn't see the light fixture. Everything was just lit, photon. And I'm like looking for the shadow, and I go, how did you get photonic light in this place? And they go, "Huh?" I said, "Yeah, look, there's no shadows." And the guy goes, "Oh, I never noticed that." Anyway, so we're going through the, and I'm taking it apart very technically. So he can't say that I'm incompetent, but I can tell me wearing a dress, wearing flip flops, having a gigantic cowboy hat, and a beaded pocketbook as my briefcase was, and I had a clipboard. And every time we were doing, he'd get out his little slide rule, and I'd be like just free ranging it on a piece of paper. And he was like, "How do you do that?" I said, "Well, these are called field equations, right?" He goes, "Yep." I said, "They're meant to be done in the field. This is the field. So I don't need to take it to 29, decimal points, The first three is good enough. And, to see if this thing's going to work, right?" And he is just, you know, and I keep going, "Why the heck is this damn?" He goes, "There's enough electricity for 10 million people." I said, "But Tasmania only has like 12,000 people. It's got 10 million sheep, but there is no no. This is for the industrial needs of Tasmania." I said, "No way, Jose." Right? And I kept asking that, and it kept going, "And it's built to withstand a nuclear detonation above it." I'm going, I said, "So this is a military site?" And they kind of look at each other like, and they're not wearing uniforms, but they're wearing suits that look like it came from the movie 2001, right? And this is 1970. What was it, 79, give or take? And so, it was it 79? Yeah, I guess it was. And so, they're getting more and more annoyed with me. And then when I say, the only, and I keep saying, "Why is this here? What are you doing with all this electricity?" And they kept saying, "It's for the industrial need." I said, "You don't have any aluminum smelters here. You don't have any industry whatsoever. The only thing I can see, this is super high tech transmission equipment. You can transmit this current, at least 2,000 miles without a loss of any current. Therefore, the end use is about 2,000 miles from here." And I grabbed this little thing, and I brought up a map of the world, and I look from that dam to Antarctica, and it's frigging about 1,800 miles. I said, "You must have quite a facility in Antarctica. It needs a lot of electricity. And that's when the guy who had the really nice suit with the white hair and white beard said, "All right," because he wasn't there for the first day or two of me really annoying these folk. And he goes, "Come with me." That's how he comes with me, and he puts me in a room, all by myself, just a chair, two chairs, chair, not even a table. I couldn't lean. I had to sit there, right? So I kind of tried to drag it, but the chairs were like freaking bolted to the ground. So I couldn't move it over to like lean on that chair. So I just, and it was a metal chair too. And so there was no windows, no nothing, no, there were TV cameras, but really small, teeny ones. I mean, I noticed that there were cameras, but most people wouldn't notice that there were cameras. Because they weren't what most people knew what a TV camera looked like. And I'm going, this place, this is straight out of Dr. No's, evil lair. So I'm sitting there, and the door opens, and a guy with a gun, right? Not a uniform. I mean, kind of a uniform, but not any uniform that you would notice or know. That's an American uniform. But all these people were Americans, right? And we're not speaking like Aussies. And so this guy walks in with a gun, like the M16 type of gun, but wasn't. It was another more lethal looking thing. And he had, a belt with a pistol on it and a few other things. He had like one of those springy batons, whack, I look at him for a second, and the door's still open. I'm looking at him, and okay, so it's time for Al to get tortured. And then this guy who looked like Santa Claus with a really nice suit. Now he was in Armani. He wasn't in 2001 outfits. He was in Armani, and he had Italian shoes. My dad's all about shoes, so I'm looking at those shoes, going, "Okay, this is the guy I want to talk to." And so he goes, "Oh, Al, why don't you come with me? Bob, you can stay here." So we walk down this hallway, and we turn into another hallway, and then we turn into another hallway that is looking more and more like a Howard Johnson's hotel. I mean, it had a rug, it had nice lighting that was incandescent. Actually, there were shadows. There was a lot of wood, and we came to a door. We opened it up, and it was a big, nice office, and the whole back wall. Here's the door. Here's these things. These had shelves with books up the kazoo. The wall where the door was had art on it. They were very comfy, chairs. And I have to cover that for the people who need you to be decent. And his whole back wall was facing, this thing was behind, up, and it was the whole lake was underneath that, and a whole nother mountain range, and this was a little higher than that other mountain range, so the ocean was behind that other mountain range. So the view was spectacular. You saw nothing of the dam or the installation or the heliport or no power line. All you saw was from the edge of the window that away was the lake with all the little Christmas trees. And then a mountain, but we were higher than it, so we saw over that mountain to the ocean, right? Towards, Antarctica. And got to be decent, that's right. Yeah, me neither. I've been around really violent things, and by me not having a weapon, saved my life every time. Because, they just kind of look at me and go, okay, he's not a threat. But they don't know me too well, do they? Tweety Bird. My second wife was Tweety Bird. You had to watch out for that girl. She'd eat you alive. So, but she liked me, so she put up with my, because I did everything that was my humanly possible to make her happy and to do what made her happy. And the fact that I just tried really, really hard went a long way with her, right? But she used to say, saying you're sorry is not, not acceptable. So anyway, the guy basically says, listen now, I'm looking at this report here, and it says that you're an illegal alien. I said, what do you mean? I got a visa. He goes, yeah, for 6 months. You've been here 3 years. I said, yeah, but I've worked for the Australian government the whole frigging time. He goes, yes, yes, yes. We're not going to quibble about anything, but you got to go. And I said, well, if you got that report, you kind of know that because we tried to go. We actually went to New Zealand, buddy. We took a boat, a tramp steamer, because we had no money for an airplane ticket. So I thought, oh, we'll become merchant sailors and we'll take a boat to San Francisco. So I found a company that did that, and those boats actually, especially the tramp steamers, they not only take freight, they actually have passengers. So they were happy. Oh, you got a wife? Yeah, she can be the scullery maid, and you can. We'll need a guy like you. We always have electric things to fix. So we took a boat ride from Australia to New Zealand, and that was quite interesting, seeing the Pacific Ocean and no land. And the only kind of land we really saw was a plastic continent, and that was 1977. Let's see. Uh, uh, yeah, like I said, this is spring. It's been in the mornings in the 30s and 40s. So yes. Um, so the bottom line of all of this was he walked me out to the helicopter pad. He got on the helicopter with me, flew me all the way back, not to Tasmania, but he had a really fancy helicopter that went fast. And he flew us back to first Auckland and then got on his own little private Lear jet and flew to Melbourne, right? Within from that dam to being back in Melbourne was like, no more than 5 hours, right? And when I went, it took me almost a whole day. I had to go from Melbourne to by bus to whatever, Auckland, I guess it was, and then flew to Tasmania. I mean, they didn't even let me fly straight from Melbourne. Anyway, and so, and when we were on this little, on both those aircraft, we had, nice little spread and wine, and he's smoking a cigar. You want a cigar? I said, sure, And, I mean, the Learjet was just straight out of Goldfinger. He had Pussy Galore flying the thing, and a Asian stewardess ready, with the dagger in her hair. Anyway, so I took the seat that was in the bulkhead, and no one could sneak up on me. And I was only drinking from the bottle that I saw her pour for both of us. So anyway, so he's going, oh, don't worry about it. We get back to Melbourne, and this is how it's going to go. And he slides me an envelope, and look in there, it's $5,000 cash. He goes, is that enough? And I said, yeah, for now. And he goes, I know you've been here a long time, so you're going to have to tie up a lot of strings, and not a problem. So, I'm going to, when we get to the airport, I'm going to give you one of our cars, and you can drive it around for all you want. And here's my private, number. Call it any time if you got a problem, any problem, and if anyone gives you a hard time, just call me up and I'll straighten it out. And when you're ready to go, a week or two before, just say, hey, I'm ready to go, and we'll get your travel plans all set. And why don't we have lunch once a week, right? You're an interesting guy. I like talking to you. You're the kind of guy I like, and I'll take you out to lunch. And he took me in Melbourne. There is a super duper private, Illuminati club that's been around since the mud flood. since the Gilded Age. That's where Rupert Murdoch and Reginald Lancet and all those guys, all those criminals hang out. And I went to lunch, and he was the most respected they had his private table, private dining room, private everything. And, I remember the first time I went there, I had his card. And um, I met him at his office, and we went to lunch, right? And he not only, he gave me his private card. When, he got me a car out of their garage, and I'm sure it had tracking and bugs and you name it. So, but he also gave me a credit card where I could go to any gas station and just get it filled up, and buy whatever I wanted to at that gas station, right? So, I came back, and my wife saw me drive up in a really nice, Australian car, and Morris Minor or something. But it was a top of the line, fancy. My buddy came out, his girlfriend came out there. Where'd you get this? And I said, you wouldn't believe it. Dr. No gave it to me. So Dr. No's boss gave it to me. So the we drove to Sydney. We drove around. We did things. We stayed about a month and a half. We decided how we wanted to go, how we wanted to roll, all of the above. So, about a week or two before, and every week I would go have lunch with him at this fancy club, and he'd slide me in. So I was accruing a nice little bankroll to go back to America. And, by the time when I told him when I was heading, wanted to leave, he started giving me those envelopes in Benjamins, right? And not Australian money. And so basically, we get on the plane, and he comes in a big limousine. No, what happens is he goes, come to my office, drop the car over and come and bring, your wife. We'll, whatever luggage or stuff, we'll have somebody pick up a day or two before, just give us a call. And we did all that. So we had, just our little traveling bag. And we stopped at the office, and, and it was like, a governmental thing, not downtown in the city, but kind of out in not quite the sticks, but, it had its own little exit off the bypass. And, I'd gone there enough that the ladies at the desk, instead of like wanting to, truly grill me, and they were all looked like that lady in Russia with Love, number 2, that had a little poison dart in her shoe. Anyway, he's go on right up, he's ready to see it. And so we go up there. It's really nice. It's bright. It's it's a beautiful building. We go up there, and he sits us down. We have tea. He basically has some roll in some a little meal for us, and we have that. And he's all on about Donna, and what a great photographer is, and she's going to go far, and da 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 da. He'd love to buy some of her photos of Australia, and here's just send me a box of them, and I'll send you some. And he gave her an envelope, and and it was like Christmas time, right? And he looks like Santa Claus, right? But in an Armani suit with Italian shoes. And he always has his bodyguard with him, right? And and his, very private secretary. So, he goes, okay, it's about time to go. So we go down. There's a limo. He gets, Donna gets in first. I get in. He gets in. We're driving, and we go to the airport. We don't go through anything. We drive around to where there's a gate. They let us in. We drive on the tarmac. We go straight to the airplane, and there is some stairs that go up to the little tube that goes to the airplane. So we didn't even go through the gate, right? And he drops, he gets out, he shakes my hand, he's waving goodbye. We go up the steps. Uh, and he had given us these two very nice leather bags with all kinds of like little things to put over your eyes and creams and little slippers, for the airplane ride, and a little kimono, keep yourself warm. And so we go up there, and there's a stewardess waiting for us at the top of where the door is. She opens the door. We don't have to show her the ticket or anything. We have our tickets, right here, and we're not only in first class, we're in ambassador class, and that is like we have our own little cubicle. Now, that's more of a common day thing now, but this was a 747, and so you came on the front, tube, and there's first class, but in front of that was ambassador class, right? And there was 12 seats there, and like I said, each was like its own little coffee table, and really looks the things. You push a button, it went back. It kind of made a bed. I mean, it was cush. And there were 3 stewardesses just for ambassador class, right? And they were over there. You didn't have to push any button or wait. You just kind of put your finger up, and they'd not be, but do you need anything? Every half hour or 40 minutes. Let me fuck that pillow. Oh, can I rub your feet? It was ambassador class, I'm sure it had a happy ending in the back if you wanted it, but I had my sweetie with me, so I didn't need that. And we fly back, right? And it wasn't like flying there. We had flight 007 when we were in steerage. We were in the back like this, and that's where I saw the world change in the toilet bowl. And this place, you virtually had your own bathroom, right? I mean, there was like 2 or 3 bathrooms for 12 people, and they were really not the stinky little blue water. It was like, anyway, so we had this beautiful flight to Hawaii. That's where we entered America, right? And in ambassador class, you didn't get off the airplane like the other people had to, and because the majority of the people who were on, especially in steerage, they had to get on a different airplane, um, and there wasn't too much of a steerage. It was, ambassador class, first class, which was, almost, more than half the airplane. And then there was the low rent section, but it was still very like business, it was still very nice. Very, very nice. Not just nice, very, very nice, right? And so when we, land in Hawaii, I think Diamond Head, it was amazing because we're coming in, and he kind of takes in a really nice, and this was the front of the 747, so the windows, the pilot was kind of above us, and the windows went all the way to the nose, and they were bigger than the little, and so you were watching the area you were flying through. So when we were flying into Hawaii, the view was spectacular, right? And it was kind of sunset, so the sun was kind of going down, but it was still early. It was like maybe 6, 7 o'clock. Still when we left, wasn't dark. And so we and what was nice was when we got into L.A., it was earlier in the day rather than late at night. So we stayed on board, and the lady said, if you want to get off and walk into the gate area, we have a lounge you can go to, but we're going to be leaving in 40 minutes. The lounge isn't as nice as the ambassador class here, but if you want to stretch your legs and you want to maybe hit some of the stores there, go ahead. Or here's a piece of paper, mark off the things, and we'll get it for you. So we actually kind of walked around a little bit, but when we came in for the landing, what was truly amazing was the airport. This side was like Disneyland, and on this side they had B-52 bombers and fighter planes. It was like you could see what America was about. Welcome to America, right? Because that airport had been basically a military base first, and then it became, this side was for commercial traffic. This was for the military, and when you landed, it was right there in front of you. Especially we had the panoramic view, so it was like pretty amazing. And the trip back, I kept going to the toilet, and it didn't have the blue water going down. It was a bidet, so there was no pushing a button and watching the swirly go. And I kept pushing a button, waiting for it. And one time the you know uh, you know airline assistants, well, this isn't like, it's not a porta john like the other ones. This actually, so we only have a limited amount of water, and you are using, more than. And I said, oh, I didn't think it's not recycled. I said, no. And I said, after the third time I did it, she knocked on it. What, something wrong? You want me to clean it for you? And so I said, no, I'm good. And she goes, we give you 3 flushes, three washings, and then it doesn't happen anymore. And I just came to tell you that this is the case and see you were okay. And I went back, and my wife, she's like snoring. She looks like Howard, Homer Simpson, a little drool over here because she is sloshed. She is hit. They give her whatever, high. Didn't matter. She was feeling no pain, right? And so I was in a contemplative mood, and we were like flying. Basically the sun had set. It had been night, so we're flying towards the sunrise, and so we're watching that. And because the pilot was up here, they actually, in the ambassador, they actually had a lounge upstairs. And if you wanted to go up there, you could. And the first class, you could mingle with the first class folk, right? Because the staircase to go up there was right where the door is. So the first class people could go up there too. So I went up there. And that had even more kind of bizarre panoramic view of everything. And it was almost like being on a train. And so when we flew out of Hawaii and the sun was setting, you could look back at the sun setting, right? And we were up at 30-something thousand feet. And so the sky was, the stars were amazing. And the blinky lights were far enough back on the wings. We were far enough in front of that it didn't, flash, right? And didn't kill the sky. And so I sat up there for a good long time being contemplative about the whole trip, about how it started and how it's ending, right? And when we got on, we got on a separate thing, right? And so when I went up to the lounge up there were 7 black little guys who looked very much they all kind of looked like this guy. I'm only 5'11" and a half, right? So this guy's almost, gray, right? And he's, again, no shoes his whole life, right? Me, cowboy, military boots. And cowboy hat, cowboy shirt, jeans, bare feet. Anyway, so I go up to the lounge, and there are these 7 or so guys looking like that, blacker than night, and they are wearing full, brand new, amazing cowboy outfits. I mean, they look like they just came from a rodeo, right? I mean, the full, sparkly, tassely cowboy shirt and really great cowboy hat and pressed jeans and cowboy boots, right? Anyway, all the rest of the white people are like not even going near those guys, and they're like knocking back the beers and getting giggly because they like getting drunk. And so I go back and sit down with them, and they kind of giggle that I'm there. And this one guy leans over to me and goes, "So how'd you like your first night in Australia?" And that first night was when we landed, and Pan Am had lost all our luggage and wasn't going to pay us a nickel, and we had no money, and we were in Sydney. And my friend came and got us, yes, but he was with this crazy woman named Vicky, who was drunk out of her mind and driving a car. And we went to a party in a council flat, which was in Sydney, up on the rim. I mean, all the rich people lived down in, on the water, but we were up, and it was really nice up there. I mean, those council flats were nice. And the parking lot was here, and then there was kind of paths into the different buildings that were kind of like a park, a lot of park benches. And the edge had a big fence and a big walkway that you could walk all the way to. And they had these park benches, right? And the sun was going down. And I was totally fried from the flight and we flew straight from freaking LA to Sydney, We might have stopped at some gas station in between, but it was a terrible flight. And so I was fried. Donna was totally just pissed because they had lost all their stuff, because I knew better. I kept saying, "Honey, don't take anything. We'll get whatever we need there." "Oh, no, I need this. I need this." And I made a special suitcase. I had a friend of mine who made suitcases and made her a gigantic suitcase that was really special. You couldn't miss it, And he sewed, "This is going to Australia on this date," and had a thing plastic things that we could, had all our information on. And not only did they lose it, they tore it in half, and half of it went to Europe, and the other half went to Japan. And my brother, God save his soul, actually went and called up Pan Am, and because he had a friend in Pan Am high enough to find out what happened to our bag, and they actually got our bag for us, and they actually sewed it back together, and they actually saw that I had a manifest of all the stuff and what it cost. And when they delivered it, they actually gave us a check, for which they should have that first day, right? But they just were really, really sorry. Here's your bag. It was sewn in half, right? And that bag is somewhere in Valhalla somewhere. But anyway, it was a terrible day. We were both fried, and we were going there because, Neil's been a really good friend of mine for years up until this time. And he lived with me in New York when I was doing the, he lived in the green room with me with Tommy Two Toes and Bobby Bentnose when I was sparking, xenons to life. And that was a pivotal moment in his life. And my wife was the first girl he didn't have sex with, right? He was a total whore, right? Every woman he ever saw that, gave him a tingle, he gave him a tingle back. So, and when we took the Gray Rabbit across the country, because Lester, who did the Gray Rabbit thing, was my bud, and I could ride that free anytime I want. It was just a rolling, party. And so when we were rolling across America, go from New York to San Francisco, he, one night when the sun was setting or rising, I guess it was rising because we were driving towards the sunrise, or away from the sun. We were like going with the sunrise. Anyway, so he was crying, and he had all these girls puddled around him. And I said, "Buddy, we got up and sat in a few seats that was in the front of the bus, and had a card table in between them." I said, "What's up? Why are you upset?" He goes, "I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy." I said, "What's up, Neil?" He says, "Well, you're my best friend." I said, "Neil, how can I be your best friend? I've known you for 4 weeks." He goes, No, you don't understand. In Australia, it's like hyenas. Everybody's stabbing everyone in the back. Everyone's got a smile and stabbing everyone in the back. And you're the first person who I can trust. I can't even trust my own family. My father, my mother, my sisters. Can't trust anybody. Maybe grandma, but that's it. And so you're my best friend. So we went to San Francisco, and I had a big bag of loot that Bobby Bentnos gave me for finishing, sparking xenon stallites, so they didn't end up like Bugsy Siegel. So that's why Neil was my good friend, and he was a Gary Trudeau of Australia. He was a political cartoonist, and he had a wicked sense of humor. And so anyway, we're both big letter writers. This is before email, and so he says, "I found my Donna. Oh, I love her so much. I'm going to stop being a whore. Oh, I said, oh, that's great. You'll be happy now." And so he goes, "You got to come to Australia. You got to live with us. You got to be with us. I've told her all these stories about what we did, and she wants to meet you and Donna." And I say, "Fine, okay." So, things go down, time and space. Oh, we traveled all over Europe. We traveled all over America. It's time for us to go to Australia. So we get some cash together. I find these really cheap tickets, and we go, and after this unbelievably hellish journey, and I've had a vision in the toilet, and so of what's going to happen. I mean, I saw 9/11. I saw this. I saw a whole bunch of things, right? Just like the Irish lady told me that I would, she gave me all this information and that I wouldn't remember it until it happened. Well, I saw it in the toilet bowl, right? And I was like, uh-oh. And one of them was, I was in a vision of being with this Aboriginal crew, right? At a quabbery around a fire and all the sparks going up. And walking into the fire. So, I came back and I was really freaked out and upset. And the stewardess who had been ignoring us by, this time basically goes, "Sir, are you okay?" And I go, because I must have been weeping. And she goes, "I think you need a drink." So she went and got some pillows and blankets from first class and brought back a bottle of VOS, of brandy, right? And 2 plastic snifters, and left the bottle and a big glass of ice and a couple of cans of ginger ale. And it was like, whoa, thank you, dear. And so, and she goes, "Do you smoke?" And I say, "I probably could right now." And she goes, "Well, we have some cigarettes and cigars, a box. She brings them back. So it was a pack of Chesterfields. I hadn't smoked those in like 30 years. I took the backpack and a couple of cigars, and she gave me a lighter. And so it was an electric lighter, no flame, electric lighter. And it had Pan Am on it. It's the only thing I got from Pan Am was a bottle of VOS and a couple of cigars and a pack of cigarettes and an electric lighter. That's the only good. And she was very nice. She put the pillow behind my hand. Donna was asleep, like drooling, and so she tucked Donna in my lap, and and I'm just crying, weeping, and all of a sudden, Donna wakes up. She's like a cat. She stretches. "Are we there yet?" And she feels it. She looks up at me and she goes, "Why are you crying?" She goes, I said, "Man, I've had a very weird dream, really, really weird dream, and I haven't had a weird dream like that since Mr. Wiggles has come into my dream time." So anyway, we land, and we're, the airplane's pulling up to where we're going to, into the tube, and I can see Neil jumping up and down like a crazed puppy. He's just so happy that we're there. He's running back and forth, and we come out, and we don't see him because he's behind this glass thing. We have to go down this long corridor, go through customs, and then he's at the end of the. But where the windows are, where the airplane kind of comes around there, he can be there waving. They let that his section. So we see him waving and jumping up and down and running around. And then we get off the plane, go through customs, come out, and customs wasn't bad. And so there he is. He grabs us. He's hugging, kissing us. And there's this chunky, muffin top girl. And this is a muffin top girl, got a gut like this and the top, right? And so she had a really serious set of headlights. And anyway, so I go, "Oh, Natalie." And he goes, "No, this is Vicky. It's my friend from Melbourne. I didn't have a car. Natalie's, um, um, you know, otherwise occupied." I said, "Oh." So I go, "That's fine." And so we get in the car, and she is drunk, and she is trying to grab Neil and stick um, her tongue down his mouth, And I go, "This ain't." Oh no, her name was Leslie. "This ain't Leslie. Who is this girl?" And Vicky, my friend from, she's just really sweet, really friendly, and she's driven all the way from Melbourne up here, and and we're going to stay at our friends, and it's how I said, "Who's a friend?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a woman I'm having a baby with." And I said, "Not Leslie. She was Natalie." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Neil, I thought, Leslie was the one and you were going to stop being a whore." And he goes, "Well, things happen." And I go, "Yep, yep, yep." And so anyway, so we're driving, and this woman is crazy. She's drunk, and we almost smashed into three or four, had 3 or 4 really bad car crashes. And Donna, because she, was really aggro that Pan Am lost her everything, and she doesn't have a nickel to show for it. She grabs Neil and pulls him out of the passenger front seat and jumps in and throws Vicky into that seat and takes over the car. Make sure we don't smash. And she's driving on the wrong side of the road too, because she's not used to being in Australia yet. So anyway, we go up on a sidewalk, we come around, and then bingo, there's this road that goes up. Vicky, there, turn there, go up there, and we go up there, and we end up in the parking lot, and it's like super trauma. I can't believe what just happened, and so. And we haven't, really slept in the last 72 hours, and Donna's ready to kill somebody, and so I don't want to go to this party and watch her do it. So we're walking up, and I'm watching. Look, this is a nice place, and the sun's going down, and it's really pretty, and the city is all below us, and the lights are starting to come up, and there's the big bridge and the opera house, anyway. So I go, we there's the building, there's a park bench. I go, I think I'm going to just sit here and watch the sunset and try to cool out. And she goes, "That's probably a good idea." And I'm just going to try and find a bathtub and take a nice hot bath and then go to bed wherever they say we're going to sleep. And she goes, "Neil, we have a bed, don't we?" He goes, "Oh, yes. If I have to give, you're gonna be up, Donna. You're gonna have a bed. Yep, no problem. And the bathtub. She's got a bathtub, and no one will bother you. You know. So anyway, I go, good. Donna will be happy. I give her a sweet kiss, and I said, "Tomorrow will be a new day, and we'll forget about all the rest, and we'll just have a good time." And so, Don says, "Okay, I'm going to the bathtub," and so I sit on the park bench. I'm watching. Sun's going down, 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 down. Lights are coming up, and I go, "This is, I'm feeling better." And then all of a sudden, I kind of look south, and we're high up, and I'm looking. Here's Sydney. Here's the bay. Here's the coast. There's the coast. There's Melbourne, and I can see Adelaide. and then I can see the South Pole, and then I can see people on the moon. And I turn back, and I am sitting out in the outback around a fire pit with a group, this group, and they're they're made up, right? They're not wearing too many clothes, and they got masks that they built on their face, and they got feathers and bark, and they're doing the traditional instruments, stick and didgeridoo, because all that is a log that you blow, hum through, kind of, and you know, uh, I'm sitting at the edge, and they're all like smiling at me, and the sparks are going up, and they all kind of stand up and step into the fire, and they kind of help me up, and we all step in the fire together, and it doesn't burn. It feels nice, and then we're in the sun, and we are traveling through the sun to other star systems, and we're seeing it. It was very much like that scene with Contact. When our heroine is in the space capsule and she's like flying through, and they got that from 2001. That's what our astronaut boy, once he went through that thing and ended up in the mirrored Holiday Inn, and that's kind of what I was experiencing along with this Aboriginal tribe. And I was seeing all kinds of, I saw 9/11 again. I saw what's going on now. I saw, all the wars. I saw all the suffering, and then I saw good times on the other side. You so I'm like just taking it all in. I'm like gobsmacked, right? And you know, we all of a sudden I'm being woken up, and it's like high noon. The sun is as hot as like a blowtorch, and I am being shook. Are you well? Are you well? Are you well? And all it is a black outline because the sun is like behind this cop, and he's got me. He's got me up in the air. He's like shaking me, and he drops me like a bag of potatoes, and then I vomit on his feet, and he gets really upset, and he starts kicking me, and that's when Neil comes out and said, "What are you doing? Why did I just can't you tell this guy's really, he's just had some, and the cop, he goes, "Are you so and so?" And Neil goes, "Yes," and I'm taking care of this guy. You found him. Thank you very much, officer. I'm sorry he vomited on your shoes. And so, the cop leaves because he realized he shouldn't have been kicking me. And Neil picks me up and drags me into, and throws me in the shower, washes me off. My wife, is right beside him. They kind of drag me into the thing. And the party is still kind of going on. I go, "So what is it the next morning?" And Donna goes, "No, this is where have you been? It's been 2 days." I said, "And this party's been going on for 2 days?" I said, "These people are unconscious. They have no idea what's going on. Neil and I have been worried sick about you, and they just got drunker and stoned." And the girl who's pregnant with Neil's baby is like drinking vodka martinis. And so, I'm in the shower. Neil and Don are both in the shower, kind of scrubbing the vomit off of me, and kind of put me in a bathrobe and drag me in the room. And he brings in a nice pot of tea and these lemon cookies. And he goes, "This should settle your tummy." And you know, and our adventure started from then. Then a year and a half later, no idea. I thought we were just going to be there 6 months or even less. We're there. We're like living there, right? We've got jobs and things and careers and all kinds of stuff going on. Donna really likes it because her photography is really blooming there. I mean, she's getting shows, and she's and it's her. It's not DNA. It's just Donna because I'm involved in all this other stuff. Plus, she's involved in all the stuff I'm doing. So she's part of the Circus Oz and the avant-garde theater and all the above. And she doesn't go on the electrical jobs, but she's everything else. And the anti-apartheid, Aboriginal rights movement and meeting really interesting, you know, progressive people of the Labor Party, and so she's happy. But at a certain point, she does want to go home. How are we going to get home? How are we going to get home? Because neither of our parents, even like you know, Donna's mom's, her father, who was the one who truly, truly loved her, he died when we were in San Francisco, and we went back for that, and then went through a charade wedding service. I mean, we had got married in London, but her mother wanted to have the big fancy wedding, and Donna and I, okay. And all the mobsters came and gave me envelopes, which was nice. And so, um, but she wanted to get back, and so she wanted to take this notoriety and make it happen in New York, right? Even though people knew us as DNA and not just Donna, and so, and that's why when we got back, she said, you know, I don't want DNA anymore. You've got all this other stuff. You do that. I'll just do the photography. And I had built her beautiful dark room. And she goes, and you can't take pictures. I said, what do you mean I can't take pictures? You know, everything I do, I document. I got to take pictures. She said, well, you're moving into video and film. Let's do that. I said, no, I got to do stills too. And so she goes, well, if you do that, let me think about that. So the next day she came back with a little bag and she gave me throwaway cameras. She goes, you can use these. I said, well, what about 2.25? And then she went into her dark room and she came out with a Diana camera, which is basically a throwaway camera, but you can actually put film in it. And you just don't take the pictures and then send it off. You can actually put film in those cameras and actually develop yourself if you want to, but normally people just send it off. And there was this company in California called GBH that amazing, did a great job, gave you 2 rolls of film, 2 sets of prints, $10, and a bunch of envelopes, and you just put it the roll in the envelope and send it off, and you got 2 new rolls of film, 2 sets of prints, negatives, and $10. Couldn't beat it. So that's how we got to Tasmania, because we couldn't figure out a way to get home except to become merchant mariners and take a tramp steamer. And the ride from Australia to New Zealand, it's not that far, but it took us forever because we stopped at every little nickel and dime place, which was okay for us because we were still adventuring travelers. But Donna said, we can't do this from Australia to San Francisco. They said it's going to take 6 months of the tramp thing going from here to there. I said, well, look at all the adventures. Well, she goes, I'm tired of adventures. I'm done with adventures. I want to get back to New York and, put this on full drive. And so, she, what Donna wanted is what Donna got, because, that's where I'm at. So that's how, and so we got a week in New Zealand. We were at Christchurch, and we got a little, bus toury kind of thing that we kind of went out to that kind of mountainous area, and then over to the coast, and then back to the capital. And we got back on the tramp steamer and went back to Australia, which was a nice adventure. We wouldn't have seen New Zealand otherwise. So, we saw more than the capital city. We saw a little bit more, right? So you're very lucky where you live, buddy, and especially if you live on one of those islands. So anyway, to take the story full round. So, one of the gigs I got was to go do this ethnography on this Aboriginal tribe, because they basically had wiped them out in the 60s, and a lot of people knew about it, even though they thought, oh, we'll just kill all these people in the desert, no one will find out about it. And they were trying to lobby for the Olympics, and so they wanted to show that they weren't that slimy of a people. See, they're kind of thinking about them, even though they killed most of them. And so That's why we were sent there, to film them, take pictures of them, find their sacred sites, and like put little fences around them. So yeah, we can dig for gold and iridium and coal all we want, but in this little shoebox we won't bother, right? So see, we respect them. So anyway, and they picked me because I had been working for the Australian government. I'd been working for this electric guy, working on very strange stuff. And I had been involved in this movement to give them civil rights, right? I got a picture of it. Where is it? Well, there's a picture of Ayers Rock, right? And I am 10 miles away from this. This is the size of Manhattan. It's about 4,800 feet up, and it's a rock. It like fell out of the sky. At least that's the story. Right? And here's the kind of floods. Out in the middle of the desert, they have these floods. And this car, it has painted on it, flood of 68. I mean, that's how high. And it's a wall of water that just kind of hits you. If you don't know it's coming, you're dead. Right? And that's why when this little guy, I was doing walkabout with him, he said, "Do you think you can get up on top of that mountain in the next 20 minutes?" And I said, "What?" I said, "Time, you don't, do time." And he said, "No, we got to run up there." And it was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. I said, "Is this a test? What are you doing?" He said, "Well, we can, talk about this, and then we'll die, or we can run like heck and get up there." And once we started running, he was way ahead of me. And once we got up there, he was like sitting on a rock, just like picking his teeth. And I was, "Why did you make me do that?" He turned around, and the wall of water was right. It was sunny over here, black wall of water, right? So I saw so many things. When I came back from this, I was, okay, got to do something about this. And so I got involved with the very progressive people. And they really didn't do anything except, go to dinner parties and talk about stuff. And, but I met Jimmy Bantry, who was the Aboriginal, guy in the parliament. I mean, he didn't even have a vote, but he was at least their voice. And he was a smart guy. He had white blood in him. He went to law school. He couldn't practice law because he was an Aborigines, but he could represent. They had the English system, so he could be a bailiff. Or Rumpel, he was that guy. So, where is this picture? Now, so here's Jimmy. You can tell he's a politician because he's like with the doc. And this is out at the station. And so he traveled all the way from Sydney to see us because, the movies we were sending back were like really rocking them. And so he wanted, me to get involved with what was going on because he wanted a real movement, not just, little voice. Where are the pictures of the movement? And the little baby who was born there, by that woman, and she was still a virgin, basically, he became Jimmy's, voice because he was a great speaker, very, he was taking, oh, here we go, So here's a poster that Neil put together, and we plastered all over Australia. I was a wheat paste guy, so I got people, the artist crew, I got them interested in the thing that we did in New York called Ad Busters, and so that was our little. So we just covered where we saw a bank and a big plate glass window. This is before they had CCTVs, So we would just throw some wheat paste up, put the thing up, hit it with the brush again, walk away, right? Or cover, spend 3 minutes and put 50 of those posters covering the whole frigging window, right? So they never quite found us, but I'm sure they knew I was part of it. But because Santa Claus, who gave me the chicken a first class airplane ride, basically had day to day everything I did for the last, they had been keeping an eye on me, and they let me pretty much do whatever the heck I wanted because it was only me. He said, "Man, if you really had gotten a movement going, we wouldn't be giving you this fond farewell," because he said, we let stuff like this happen because it's a good pressure relief valve, right? People think, say, look, we can complain, we can, rabble rouse, we can, and then, it's like the frog in the pot. First it's water, and then it's warm, and oh, that's nice, and then it's bubbly. Oh, it's like a jacuzzi, and then your soup. And that's what the Santa Claus rich guy in control in the Armani suit with Italian shoes told me at one of our lunches when he had a few belts, and he's looking out from the private dining nook that's his onto all the rich guys. Oh, there's Reginald Ansett and this, he said, these people own everything. They rule. This is what rules. We are, what did he call it? Not a corporation and not an oligarchy, but he used another term. But anyway, so when we traveled, and they didn't give us a car, we left, the capital, went down Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, where we spent a few days with the expert on the Aborigines, and then came up the other side to, little towns, little stations, and then we hit Pine Gap, while Missile Range. I mean, that's where Area 51 is. That's where the weird stuff is. Not in Nevada, but out there. That's where I met Stan Deyo. Go read his books. None dare call it conspiracy. Anyway, and all the Nazis were there. They were all in their Ladenhosen, and then they loved Anna. I mean, we kept bumping into Nazis all over Australia, and they loved Anna. She was so cute. They loved her. And so, where we were going was not even on the outback road, meaning the bus guy had to take a little jag to get to Christmas Creek, and he was willing to do it. I mean, it was on my ticket. He had to take us to Christmas Creek. So when he got on his bus, I said, this is where we're going. He goes, oh, yeah, it's about 300 miles, and I have to jag. Oh, yeah, not a problem. I've dropped people up there before. But why are you going there? There's nothing there. He says, you want me to drop you off at the station? I said, no. Right at the creek. That's where I want to go. He goes, okay, it's just a garbage dump there. There's really nothing there. I said, that's where we're going. So he did. Very nice. But, I woke up just, I don't know, a couple hours before we get to Christmas Creek, and there's this god-awful noise, and the bus is bumping all over the place. And, I get up and I walk, and he's got the seat behind him that it's got his bag. But I've been going up there every now and then and talking to him and keeping him awake. He liked that. So, and I, get up there, and there's blood all over the windscreen of this big bus, right? And I go, what the heck? And I look down, and the sun's coming up, And what we are doing is we are driving, because we're not on like the main drag. We're like driving across the outback. Yeah, there's some like tire trails, but it's, most of the animals aren't used to vehicles or seeing a frigging bus zip across the outback. And he's zipping along at about 50. And what he is doing is plowing through wall to wall kangaroos. As far as the eye can see, kangaroos. And he's just driving right through them. I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, we got to get through these roos. I said, why don't you stop? He said, there's so many of them, I'd have to probably wait a couple hours, if not half a day, before all of them, got past where we're going. So I'm just driving through them. I mean, he had like a roo catcher, and because I kept pointing this thing to the bus driver. So what's that? They go, oh, it's a roo catcher. I had no idea what a roo was until we were plowing through them. Anyway, so we plow through them and we keep going, and the sun comes up, and around 11, there's Christmas Creek. And I'm looking at this, I'm sitting behind him, and he goes, there's the garbage dump. And I kind of look at it, and he, goes by. And he's not doing 50 anymore, because it's like we're going down to a dried out creek bed. And he goes, so, and I see some guys fooling around, right? And so we go down, he lets us off, gets out and gets our bags, and he goes, I don't know what you're doing here, because, this really isn't a safe place. Well, I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, there are insects here. I said, yeah, there are insects everywhere. Said, no. There's black and red-backed spiders. They bite you. They're teeny-weeny things. They bite you. You are dead in 3 minutes. And out here, you are like 900 miles the closest any anti-venom anything. I don't know what you're doing out here, but you're taking your life in your own hands, and there's no place to eat. Why? And I had bought a few. We had stopped. I knew that we had to change our diet, so we were just drinking water and eating fruit. We weren't, no more milkshakes, no more cheeseburgers. About a day or two before this. So anyway, we get out. The bus drives away. We're in a cloud of dust, and Donna's like kind of looking at me like, so what's up? Where, I thought somebody would be meeting us. And I said, I think they are. They're just not here. And, she said, okay. So I took we had two suitcases. I put them on top of each other. I sat her on top of the suitcases, thinking somehow the spiders wouldn't get her. And I said, here, hold this, and I'll be right back. And I ran up the riverbed, and there was the garbage dump. And I went in there, and I'm looking around, and there's these two. Where are they? These two guys. This is them in the garbage dump. And they were drunker than skunks. And they were surrounded by a pile of beer cans, and they were kind of passed out on this really crudded out mattress. And that was them that day at the garbage dump. And they looked up at me and said, well, Al, how'd you like your first night in Australia? Right? And that was the night that I was on the, and so here's Dawn before she got acclimated. Like, this is the same day. And somebody from the station came and got her, and then came and got us. And she's like going, what the heck are we doing here? It took a while before she, became ecstatic. But these guys gambled, loved to play cards, right? At night, that's all they did is play cards, right? And here is, one of the drunk guys, and he's holding I gave him a Polaroid camera. He's holding a Polaroid in his hand. And I gave every one of the tribe a SX70 and a couple of boxes of film, showed them how to load the camera and said, go take pictures. And they did. And they took some pretty great pictures. And they basically, were happy that I did that. And they let me take pictures of everything. They're taking everything, right? One day I asked one of them, so the morons, after the morons came from Adelaide, Perth, the experts on the Aborigines wanted to know how I could make these films there and how I manipulated the film and what was going on. I said, no, that's exactly what happened. Look where I am. I got no dark room, got no water, I got a changing bag to take the film out, put it in a lead-lined can, put it in a lead-lined envelope, and send it to you when the guy from the station comes every other week, right? I said, you're getting the real deal. That was the deal, right? You gave me the camera, you gave me all those rolls of film, you gave me the changing bag, you gave me the envelope with your address, alive. And how did they find that suitcase in the sand? There were no landmarks. And I said, these people are smarter than you. Oh, he got very upset when I said that they were smarter than him. And that's when he took us all to the station where the bar was, and they got drunk and started slapping each other around. So they're that smart. So they're just having a good time. So when they're sitting down there, they said to me, so how'd you like your first night in Australia? And they were there with me on that park bench with the sparks and seeing everything, right? And that's why they let us stay there and showed us everything. They knew I was coming before I knew I was coming, right? There's a book called Mutant Message from Down Under. That's exactly, that lady who wrote that, she had a similar experience, right? There's another book called The Last Wave, which is those floods. And they've had these awesome fires, and now the floods are going to wash them away because there's nothing to hold anything down. So go see those, read those books, see the movies. That's kind of the experience I was having. And when I was in Sydney, that scene where the guy goes down into the underground of Sydney, I had that, one of the Jimmy Bantry took me down there. He says, oh, this, Sydney's a sacred place. The cities were all our major sacred collaborators, and they're still here. They're just in dream time. He took me down there to see one. It was like, okay. And when I tried to take, a politician down there, so I'm not going down that. That's the sewer. You're crazy. Anyway, so here we are flying back on the super luxurious, diplomat flight on, Ansett Airlines, Reginald Ansett's Airlines. And I go up to the lounge, and who's sitting in the back but these, 5, 6, 7 little guys, little Aborigines, not the big chunky Aborigines, but the little guys, and they're dressed as to the nines in as cowboys. And I went over and sat and looked, and that's when and I got my little cocktail, and one of the emissaries of the diplomat lounge came up to serve me at that lounge, so I wouldn't have to besmirch myself by being taken care of by any just common stewardess. And in the Commodore class, they didn't just have women; they had 2 male stewards, right? So and they were high, they were like diplomats themselves. They knew tons of languages and all kinds of info. The girls were smart enough too. Um, basically, I'm sitting down, and the woman said, we actually have a section for the ambassador class. Nicer seats. I said, no, I'm interested in these guys. And she goes, well, champagne or VOS? I said, um, bring a bottle of champagne and glasses for everybody and a bottle of VOS. And she kind of, but I'm from, the ambassador class. So she brought, and whatever little snacks you have up here for the ambassador class, bring that, because these guys weren't eating anything. And because when I sat down, and she said, do you really, you should sit over here in the ambassador section of the lounge. And she then looked at these guys. I don't know how they got here. They're not first class. And I said, no. Let them stay here. I'm interested. And I said, champagne, VOS for everyone, and bring something to eat. And after she left, that's when the guy leaned over to me and said, he was like, so, how'd you like? And I looked at him, and he said, and wasn't that blue swirl interesting? I'm like, then he takes his shirt and he lifts it up, his fancy cowboy shirt, and he's got like 7 watches on. And he said, this is so I can keep an eye on time as we fly through it. He has it set at all the different, so he knows what time it is, where by white man standards. And I dream. Anyway, so we, nice bottle, second bottle, not so much. And we drank the whole bottle of VOS, right? And we ate all the goodies. And I was up there with these guys for a good long time, right? And so basically, we talked about everything except, the elephant in the room. Why the heck are they on this airplane, and where are they going? And then when I got around, when I was as snookered as they were, I wasn't as drunk as they were, because I had 1 glass of champagne. They drank, both right away. And I had 2 glasses of VOS, and they drank that right away. And by that time, I had gotten tired. And the guy goes, it's time for Dreamy Dreamland. Well, that's where I got that from. He said, it's time for Dreamy Dreamland. You should go down to your little bed down below. We're going to go back to steerage. And I said, no, you should stay here. You like this? Stay here. And I said, come here, to the steward of the ambassador class. I said, listen, I want these guys to stay here as long as they want, and give them whatever they want. And they said, beer. I said, just give them beer. You don't have to give them the fancy stuff. That was for us to share. But give them whatever sandwiches or food they might want. Let them stay here. And they're not doing anything. They're off in a corner. Nobody's even noticing them. So, let them stay here. And they goes, oh, of course, sir. Whatever you want. I said, okay. So, we land and in Hawaii, and wake up, and they don't rush us out, because we're going on to LA, and more people they're gonna have to clean stuff up a little bit and move more people in. And the first class was in 2 sections, and the first section were people who were gonna keep going on. So when we were in Hawaii, the people who got on the second section of the first class, it no longer was the super duper first class. It was now like the higher end business class. And so they cleaned that end and the other end up. And, so that it probably took more than 40 minutes, maybe 2 hours. Like I said, we got up, we got off the plane, and they served us a nice little breakfast before we got off the plane. And they then gave us, a little badge to go into the first class lounge and go into the first class where you could buy things without tax, and things were even cheaper. It's interesting how rich people get things cheaper. And so, we did that. And after breakfast, we went out, and I was looking to see if, my Aboriginal brothers were still on the plane. But no, they had gotten off, right? And when I asked them the real question, so where are you guys going? What are you doing? And their answer was, we're coming to the corroboree. Again, very, huh? Now I know what a corroboree was, a sacred ceremony. So they're coming to the sacred ceremony. So I look for them, can't find them. Yeah, so we go to the lounge and they give us lunch, a really nice lunch, right? Oh, it says here you can have lunch. We just about an hour ago we had breakfast, so okay. So I had a nice salmon and a steak and lobster and nice little baked treats and really great espresso and more VOS. And then we went shopping and got a bunch of interesting things. And she bought a ton of film. Film is like almost free. She bought a ton of film. And she got any black and white? Because, went out back, he bought out a block of triacs and said, here, no one's, we've had that back there. It's out of date. She goes, that's fine. Once she looked at the date, it's not that out of date. Sure. How much? You guys, it's yours. So it made her happy. She got 24 rolls of 36 exposure triacs, 35 mils. And I got, I had my little Diana camera and I got a bunch of 2.25. And that's where I learned about, BHG. Say, ever heard of BHG? I said, what's that? He goes, well, if you use this kind of color film, which is what he gave me for this camera, it comes with these envelopes and it's already prepaid development. When you buy this roll, you're paying for the development. That's why they give you the envelope. Stick it in there, put your return address. They will send you 2 new rolls of film and 2 sets of prints and the things, right? Then you basically use those 2 rolls of film and put the money, $10 in, and they will send you another 2 rolls of film and the prints and the negatives and so this is starter kit, right? So, good. I like that. So that's what got me into that film. And it was movie film. So it was super saturated, It was more saturated than Kodachrome, This was, movie film. So it was, what is Pana whoop-de-doo super color movie film, right? It was like the end cuts of the industrial reel. And they would develop the film along with the movie film. They were basically a movie film company, and this is one of their sidelines. So, we get back on the plane and we fly to LAX, and it's like we land in LAX, and it's, Babylon, America, the whore of the beast, right? And no one's told us. Now we've gone through customs, so we don't have to go through customs. And we're smart enough to get on that airplane where we only had, we've already learned our lesson. We had no luggage. We just had our nice little carry-on bags that Santa Claus gave us, and then the stuff that the airline gave us. And so we got up to the parade, and she went, and there's this tremendous line to get to the ticket counter, and everything is kerfuffled, and people are screaming and yelling, and like I said, it's like end of times. And it's 1979, just before 1980. Not quite. It's like maybe September 79. So, and we had gone to Australia like in January 77. So, almost 3 years. So, we, she's just pissed off. She should be happy. An amazing flight. a free pack of film, all this other goodies that we had, and we're back in America. And it was no muss, no fuss. I mean, it was really no muss, no fuss. Going through customs, they came on the plane and just stamped our thing because we were in ambassador class. And so, and what Donna does is amazing. She's a line of maybe, I don't know, 50 to 1,000 people, and they're all, right? She just, normally she wears these hush puppy shoes, but she's wearing these shoes that have heels. So she's clicking, click, 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 click. And she actually is wearing the outfit my mother bought her when we got married. So she's wearing like a women's business suit. I don't know where, I don't even remember her having that, but she did. And that's the one thing that Pan Am didn't lose. She had in her little go bag with her. Anyway, and she never wore it, the whole time we were in Australia. But, we're in Hawaii, we go back to sleep. It's another, I don't know, 6-hour flight from Hawaii to LAX. And, she basically, again, we land in LAX after foldering around in Hawaii. And it's in the morning. So it's, so when she goes into the powder room, where the woman, they actually had a shower for women. They had a hosey thing for the guys, but I guess guys don't, Anyway, so she went in with her kind of flight suit, like basically pajamas, and came out in this business suit that my mom bought her for her wedding, right? At least the faux wedding that we had. And she's wearing the same shoes. They weren't high heels, but they were heels. I clicked. And so she goes, here, hold my bags. And she just walks up, click, 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 click. And I'm like behind her by 10 people, just going, I better hang with her just in case somebody tries to kill her. And she is pissed. And when she gets pissed, ooh, she's like a Tasmanian devil, So she's like fires coming out her ears, and she walks up, and that girl behind the counter has just finished things. So before that guy who's waited for the last 40 minutes can say something, Donna pushes him out of the way and goes, I want 2 tickets. And the woman says, I don't know if you know, ma'am, but you can't just buy a ticket. She goes, what are you talking about? She goes, well, we have a work stoppage. And because so many people still want to fly, they couldn't book their flight. So they have to do it here. So the airlines have, curtailed their flights out of here. And so we only have so many seats, going to so many, in the next hour to San Francisco, and I want the next flight in however long to New York. And the woman goes, well, I can put that in the computer, but I don't have the power to issue that ticket. It's a random, spinning wheel, roulette wheel of choice here. Now, I will push the button, and if the wheel comes out, you'll get the ticket. But if not, you'll have to wait. You'll get a control number and go over to that line and you wait 5 hours, and you'll probably get a ticket. So she's now fires coming out of her eyes and her ears and her nose, and smoke is coming out of her mouth. So the woman's kind of scared, but she pushes the button, and the wheel of fortune goes, and she goes, oh, and I'm down, and he goes, what? She goes, well, your ticket for San Francisco, you've got. That'll be $90. And she goes, okay. And she has her own little envelope of Benjamins given to her by Santa Claus. And so she pulls out a Benjamin and hands it to her. And he goes, okay, hit the button for New York. Now, the smoke and fire could have worked for Don. Me, I'll probably, end up having to hitchhike to New York. But what happens is, she goes, that's amazing. And Don, what? She goes, the ticket came out, and it's a first class ticket to New York, and it's leaving in 40 minutes. Yours is leaving in an hour and 10 minutes. And so she goes, "How much?" And the lady goes, "Well, because of the situation, it's only $60." And Donna goes, "Wait a minute. A regular flight to San Francisco is going to cost me $90. First class ticket for him is $60." And I lean forward and I hand the lady my own Benjamin and go, "Here." And so she gives me the ticket, puts in the envelope, I put in my thing. I go, "Honey, what do you want? You want to come to my gate and wait and see me up there, or should I leave you at your gate?" She goes, she looks up at the little map and she goes, "There's a bar right there. Let's go there, have a few drinks, and we'll I can stay at the bar and wait the next half hour, and you can go to your gate." That sounds a good idea. So we go in there, and it's an Irish pub, and again we have some Irish whiskey, and I've like picked up in our little super duper diplomat bags. They have cigarettes in there and cigars, nice ones. So we're in the bar, and so she goes, "I normally don't smoke, but I'm gonna smoke." So she said, "Honey, why don't you have, instead of a cigarette, these cigars are really nice." So, and so she's, "These are nice." So there we are, the two of us smoking cigars and drinking Irish whiskey, and we both get a little buzz. But she wants to get on that airplane. I said, "So where are you going to?" She said, "I'm going to go see Yvonne. That's her best friend in San Francisco." And Yvonne, Leslie, and Donna, all three are triple cancers, all born within an hour of each other. But Yvonne was born in London, Leslie born in Melbourne, Donna born in Long Island. And these girls were like, I got stories because, a few months later, they all ended up in our loft in Brooklyn. And that takes another 2 hours to tell you that story. But anyway, so we go to the bar, okay, it's about 20 minutes. I'm going to go check into my flight to New York. Okay. And she goes, you know, I'm a little terse right now. It's just because Donna wouldn't get her period except for 3 times a year. And so all of that angst that normally comes with a period every month, she would say, well, and the first time that I experienced it the first time was like, oh my God, warning of this coming up. And she goes, oh yeah, a day or two before it, it's kind of like what I'm feeling right now, right? Is I got a feeling. So, baby, tell me when you start to get that feeling that this is so we can prepare you and me to be able to navigate. And you're right, I'll do that. And she did. She was very good. So we're in that bar, and she's got a nice little buzz, and she's smoking a cigar, and she's wearing this amazing suit. And so people are like looking at us. I'm, looking like a hobo. She's, got the business suit on and nice shoes, and we're both smoking cigars, drinking Irish whiskey at a table off to the side. And and she goes, yeah, it's that time of month. I said, I know it was that time of month. That's why I kind of hit you getting off here in LA because you use that energy amazingly. And she could do stuff when she was in that zone of that triple cancer, unbelievable psychic whoop-de-doo. She was unbelievable. So, and the best thing I did for her was make her believe in all of that. The 49 for Life Club. Yep. So, it's time for me to go. We get up and we put our cigars down and we stand up and we do it like in the movies. We just go at it. I mean, just because I have no idea when she's coming back. Hopefully in a better mood. And in that angst of that, she always, even though she would get nuts, she her bleeding wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, she really had very minor, meaning she never gonna have a baby, really. Anyway, and that was fine with her. So that was her price to pay for, being, not having a baby for the rest of her life. She was happy with it. Anyway, so but she could get a little feisty, little little frisky there. So she was ready to do it right. I said, "Honey, we only got 20 minutes, you know." So it's because she was groping me and holding me, and we're like right there in the middle of frigging bar. The bar is just over there. We're surrounded by people eating sandwiches and drinking, and she is like groping me and got her tongue down my mouth and just about to hit the floor. And I go, honey, 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 no, no, no. We let's breathe. You know, I went and got two ginger ales and let's just knock these down and I'll see you. And so she goes, okay, sweetie. And she goes, you think our phone in New York will work? I have no idea. That we had a whole group of New York friends she could call. So I just start, and said, you know what? If I can't get back into our lot because I rented it out to somebody else and he paid me up front. So um, if I couldn't get back into that loft, I was going to go stay at my friend Lucy Lepard. She started Printed Matter. And we used to do a thing in front of the World Trade Center in the landfill called Art on the Beach because all the dirt they dug out of there and then they dredged a whole bunch up to build a wall so the Hudson wouldn't go into the basement of the World Trade Center. And then they were going to build fancy people's apartments who could just walk into the World Trade Center for their job. And it's called the Marina, which didn't get blown up. That's the one thing that didn't get touched on 9/11. So, but after they built that, New York City went bankrupt. So they really didn't. Real estate took a real dive, and that's where Donald Trump took his daddy's millions and bought a bunch of stuff with daddy's money. The big hotel next to Grand Central, the town, all those properties he got for a song, and he just used his daddy's money, not his brilliance of making a deal. So we did this thing. So they went bankrupt for a good 10 years. The West Side Highway collapsed because they'd done no, fixing anything in New York for a good 20 years, and they still haven't. That's why the subways look like the way they are, and why all the bridges are falling down. And so for a good 10 years, Art on the Beach. Lucy wanted to do this. She came to Collaborative Artists. We got a grant for it through our little pipeline, and we did it, and it was good because it made a lot of fanfare for us and her, and that's what made. Go look up Lucy Lepard and Printed Matter and Art on the Beach. So anyway, I basically land. Well, I'm in L.A. and there's a phone at first class. This airplane. I'm on first class, and I go at the desk, and she goes, "Oh, the first class lounge is over there." And I go over there, and there's a phone, right? Phone, and I pick it up, and it's got a dial tone, and I'm thinking that it's just to call that lady there, and I put it down. I said, "Can I make a phone call out of the airport on that?" She goes, "Oh yes, just dial one and then the area code and whatever number." I said, "Area code?" She said, "Oh yes." So I go, "Oh, 1212, New York City," and I call up, first Jody, and then Elaine, and then Joni, and then Lucy. Right, and it's a weekend. It's a Saturday or a Friday. Yeah, I was going to get in Saturday. It was a Friday. Now, I'm going to fly out of there around noon or 1 o'clock, and or 2 o'clock, somewhere like that. We landed probably around 10 a.m. Anyway, so I call and I just get everyone's answering machine except Lucy. She actually picks up the phone. Hey, Lucy. She goes, "Is that you, Al?" I said, "Yeah." She, "Are you back from your whirlwind?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in L.A. and I'm heading to New York and I need to get picked up at the airport." She says, "No problem. I'll come and get you. What's your flight number? When are you going to get?" I tell her. I said, "Okay." So, we get in to New York around, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Right? And you know, I said, "I don't know." She goes, "Where you want to go? You want to go to Brooklyn?" I said, "Well, not at 10 o'clock at night." you know, I have no idea if they're there or anybody's there. If the building's still there, what's going on with the neighborhood? She goes, well, your neighborhood's in real transition. It was, gangster land, and now it's, in transition land. I said, oh, okay, well, we'll put that off. She goes, oh, you can stay on the couch, not a problem. Okay, so she lives, where did she? She lived in Tribeca. She lived on Mercer Street, I think, and near Radio Shack and Lafayette. It's right near where Radio Row used to be. And she had one of those Radio Row lofts. Anyway, so we go have dinner. She goes, let's go to Chinatown. I said, oh yeah. So we go to Fung's, which I know this is Fung. It's one of the places only Chinese people go, down in the basement. When I was dating, when I worked for Hung and Fung Electric, um, I dated Mrs. Fung, Mr. Fung's daughter, um, and she had the restaurant. Right? And she was an arty girl. She went to Parsons, and she was a Soho girl, but Chinese as you can get, New York Chinese, right? So and so she had, I was building restaurants, and when we were dating, her father owned a building, so he gave her a basement, and I turned it into a restaurant for her. So I had lifelong, um, you know, eats at that place, and I would bring all these very interesting, famous people to, I took what's his name, David Bowie there. I took him to Luna's and later on to Fung's. So anyway, Lucy and I go down to the basement, and there's my Lou Lung. She goes, "Oh, well, you're back, you're back." Yes, yep. And so she tell me all about it, and then I started telling it, and so she goes running back in the kitchen, and this was a dim sum house, like the best. And so she knows what, she just keeps bringing out the little cart with stacked up with the little steam trays, and we're eating all kinds of goodies. And so we spend a good till things cool out. I tell some stories, and then Lucy, during that whole time, fills me in on what's been going on in the Soho art scene, Tribeca, blah blah blah. All our friends collab, right? And now collabs, getting pretty. We were the first online, so the pipeline's hot and heavy. You know, this. She's on the board of NEA now. Lucy is, and Printed Matter is a big whoop-de-doo. When I left, it was just, we used to put out these. We used to call them zines, art magazines that were, we did. I worked at Xerox, so it was like basically Xerox. So anyway, we have a great time, and Lou's bringing out, the kimchi vodka, and we're having just a jolly old time. And so we walk down through City Plaza, by City Hall and the Federal Building, and the jail that Jeffy died in, and past the Federal Building, and then cross Broadway and to her left. And she's telling me that this Saturday that they're going to have a big art on the beach, a big festival of international indigenous people. I said, oh, that's kind of fun. I just came from indigenous people, right? And I had a box of my Polaroid pictures, and she goes, wow, these are great. Can we use these for the magazine? Of course, of course. So we wake up. We go to the Pepsi diner for breakfast, and they only had Coke. And you know that scene on Saturday Night Live, Pepsi, Pepsi, Pepsi. That was the Greek guys. Only cheeseburger, right? That was actually the Pepsi diner, and the Blues Brothers. They lived in Tribeca. They lived. They actually started a nightclub called the Raccoon Lounge that me and a couple other guys got first. We called it the Raccoon Lounge because when we broke into that place, I had already started to take over abandoned buildings. it was full of raccoons. It had been an old workers' bar upstairs for lunch, and downstairs was a speakeasy, and it had the door in the back in the alley. And that's how we broke in. I mean, the alley was just that was like people used it as a dumpster. No one had cleaned that alley out in years, and we kind of crawled over the junk and cut through the door. It was a wooden door. Cut through the door. We had a gas-powered one of those circular concrete saws, and went in there. And it was a total mess because the raccoons had been partying since it was 1999, since 1929, and we cleaned it up. And our entrance for our zombie nightclub was in the back because nobody, not only was that alley full of garbage, but to get to that alley, you had to go through another alley that was pretty nondescript and wasn't really anyone. There wasn't any restaurants or any. It was just an alley, back doors for a couple of funky buildings that weren't even being used. And so, we started our nightclub, and it became quite the rage, And then the cops dropped in, and because my godfather Mike Finelli was, I brought him down there and showed him and said, "Hey, we need this, and this," and he thought it was kind of cool that it was so totally off the books. So he didn't do his normal, putting it on the books kind of thing, but he did, put a beer refrigerator, big walk-in, and taps for the bar upstairs, and they had cinder blocked the front part of that restaurant that was it on Worth? Could have been Chambers, whatever it is, whatever that was, right? And could have been Mercer too, because Lucy was just down the road. Anyway, so that was that place. So I'm in Lucy's. We go to the Pepsi Dine for breakfast, and then we show up. She's got the lock for the gate, and we open that up, and and the stage that we had put up there for the No Nukes rally is still there. That was we kind of grandfathered that into Art on the Beach, and we had other little stages around too, and other little pavilions, and it was really nice. Nobody used it, we did, right? And it was funded by the NEA and New York Council of the Arts and New York City Arts Council, and everybody said, "Oh, see what a great, we're broke, but we're still doing this great stuff," right? And big crowd would come, right? So we turn on the juice, we dust things off, and then the cars, and there was a section, another gate we opened where the green room had been, a tent for the dignitaries of that concert, and that was like our parking lot. You could easily put 20, 30 cars. So people who were going to perform and that kind of stuff, they would go in there, right? So those people started showing up, and Lucy was getting everything organized. And, I just went into one of the little pavilions and, opened up the fridge, and there's a beer in there and a bottle of vodka. And I cleaned the glass, and I just kind of sat down, and I'm drinking the beer, and not, didn't touch the vodka yet. It was starting to get hot. It was summertime, and summertime? No, September. September can get hot in New York. So anyway, I'm in there, and who walks into that pavilion? Who were in the lounge of the Imperial, flight from Australia, who got off in Hawaii, and they just kind of walked up and sat down at the table, and picked up the bottle of vodka, and they just, no glass for them, just shot that, and they go, "Got any more beer?" And I said, "Sure." Opened it up, pulled out, 2 6-packs and then went under the counter and got 4 and stuck them in the fridge. And I said, where were you guys? You got off in Hawaii. I said, well, we went to the Quabe. They had been going to all these sacred places. They went to a sacred place and saw Hawaiian Aborigines, right? And then they went to the Black Hills, right? Right? And then I said, wait a minute. And you went to, and now you're here? And they said, yeah. And they said, well, we travel, and he lifted up his shirt and he had the watch and he goes, we go by dream time. You go by dreamy dream time. And we all laughed and they got a buzz on and they had all red Samsonite plastic suitcases, just like the guys who I would go see dig out of the Coabris in the Nookenbah. I don't know where they got the red Samsonite suitcase, but they all had red Samsonite suitcases. And, they opened up it and there was twigs and dirt and feathers and string and other stuff. And, they basically put it down there. They took their red suitcase and they, took things out and put it on the table and left the dirt there and, took their schlong out and urinated in the suitcase and mixed their urine up with the dirt and made mud and put it on their face and their body. They stripped down naked, right? And, and so they're in there. And Lucy comes in and, there's beer cans everywhere. The vodka's gone. She came in to just see how I was doing and to have a drink. And here these naked guys are, and they got suitcases with, still some guys are, urinating in the suitcase to get a little more, get it a little right consistency. And she goes, wow, what are you doing? I said, not me, these guys. It's a cooperative. This is a ceremony. This is part of it. But they're doing it in private because most people out there would act like you are. And she goes, they just walked in here. They didn't even come to see me. They just kind of got out of their little cab and walked over here with their red suitcases. And I just came to check on them and you. And I said, remember I was telling you that on that, embassy flight I took and I went up to the lounge and there were, these are the guys. They're the guys who said, how'd you like your first night in Australia? These are the guys. And then she was like, you got more beer? And and then she got slappy like they were and started giggling. And they were patting each other on the back and they started slapping each other around. And some of the guys still have and they had some pretty big schlongs. And she goes, I got to stop this. I can't, I'm having too much fun. I've got to go back out and run this. There's 800 people out there, I got to get back to it. I said, I'll bring them out. And I said, so when are they on the roster to come out? And she said, well, they wanted to, be kind of with the sun setting, so in about, 3 more hours. And I said, yeah, fine. I think they'll be ready by then. And, that's when the 4 more 6-packs that I'd stuck in the fridge were cool enough, right? And I stuck jammed one up in the freezer little box. And so she left and she came back about 10, 20 minutes later, and she had a nice nickel bag, and in those days, that was an ounce, an OZ, of pretty good stuff. She goes, Richie showed up and dropped this off. He heard that you were in town. I said, where is he? Why don't you tell me? He said, well, he's driving his cab. He just kind of he drove into the site and nearly ran me over and handed it to me at the window. And so I said, is your bong still in its sacred site? She said, oh, yeah. So went and got the bomb, packed it up, put beer into the to this guy, and what did he do? He drank the beer. I said, no, 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 no. You. He goes, no, beer. You made it taste better, but no, that's not. We don't foul our lungs. You shouldn't either. And I said, you're probably right on that. But more for me. So I was getting blistered, and they were getting smashed. And so you know, by 5 o'clock, the sun isn't high. It's not set in any manner, but it's heading west, right? And from that place, it's like west is like right there, and so the sun is kind of going out of the Hudson River. It's that's and the opening of the. It's right there. And the lower it gets to the thing, the bigger the sun's getting, and the moon has risen already, and it's over in the east, and the sky over there is getting darker, and so it's really interesting. I go out there and I look, and the moon is really big, and you can see the craters, and the sun is going down, and you can almost see the little flames coming off it. And I go back. I said, yeah. And they go, we know. And I go, and he said, the guy's looking at his watch. He goes, in about 40 minutes, go find Lucy and tell her, 40 minutes, right? So I go out there, and I meet her halfway because she's heading towards us. Are the guys ready? And I said, about 40 minutes. And she goes, well, the guys on stage are still playing. They'll play until I tell them to stop playing. So I say, she goes, "What? You smoke all that?" And I said, "No, no, no, no." And so she goes, "Are there any cold beers?" I said, "Oh yeah." And I put a cigarette in there for him. So she comes in, you know, put some beer in the bong. We pack it up, and she and I finish it off, not totally off, but put a real serious dent. So there's maybe 6 or 7 more bowls left in that little baggie, and by this time, the guy's he's like pointing at his watch, and Lucy's already a slappy again, and so she's about to like bundle us all out and go out there like a football team, and he goes, no, 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 you go out first, you make an introduction, and he goes, no, you make an introduction to this one, and then he will tell the story because he's the storyteller, and then we will show up. And that should, between the two of you, it should be just right on time for where everything has to be in the sky. And that's why he wore those watches. He had it set up to astrological things going on. And that's how smart these guys are. You know, he let me, think, oh, he's just, but that's, he said, that's, this is Aries, this is Pisces, this is. So anyway, so he said about 10 minutes on the dot, and he gives Lucy one of the watch that is set to New York time. He goes, this thing has a stopwatch, so, and he hits the button, and he goes, when that little, and it was a digital one, so um, it had 2 little windows, and he hits the button again, and so now the stopwatch is in the big window. It's like you can just look at it. He goes, we will come out when this thing says 10 minutes, right? So she puts the watch on, and he goes, you can keep that. It was a nice watch too. So she and I go out, and she gets up on the stage, and he says, "Is everyone having a good time? Is everyone really amazed?" Well, this is the headliners. This is the not headliners. You don't want to diss any of the other Aboriginal folk, but this is the closing act that should send everyone out. Um, you've all been amazed and wondered and entertained and informed and educated and changed, this is going to really change you, right? And in our time of waiting, before one of the guys was still, not naked, he went out and talked to the other indigenous folk, and he said, "So, how many drummers are there? Are there drummers in you?" And some of them had drummers, others didn't. Some were drummer guys, right? So he said, so he talked to the drummer guys and looked at their drums and said, play me a reel. He knew what that was. And so and he goes, okay, now this is what we need for our ceremony. Do you think you can do that? Right. And so, you know, he got about 8, guys who had really nice, I wouldn't quite call them a kettle drum, but very deep, you know, ceremonial drums. It's the Indian, it's the Aboriginal version of a kettle drum, meaning it's as big as a tire. It's got skin on both sides. It's not a metal thing, right? And it's both skins vibrate really deep, and it usually is put on a stand, so it's not on the dirt, right? And so, you know, he said, "Okay, you 8 guys, and this is what I want." And when she gives the introduction, move, keep your drums on the stage, and just come on up and build a nice little circle up there, and then she is going to introduce our friend who will tell a story, and you will start drumming to his story. You will pick up the cadence because he will be telling a story in the cadence, and then we will just appear, and we're going to be on the sand, and he's going to have the people make a circle around the stage, which is a big stage. It's a big 200 feet long and about 40-foot deep, big stage. And so the crowd of about 300 or 400 people, however many there were, you know, had them, telling a story, and I want you to get all around so you can see each other, right? So she introduced them and me. I came out and told a story about uh, Dreamtime and what it was, and a shorter version of a 5-minute version of what the Aboriginal experience is that I had, and then drummers behind me um, were drumming to me, telling the story, right? And they got a little bit loud. They were told to get a little bit louder as I went on. And when I walked and when I introduced, and this is a corroboree, um, you know, and by that time, those guys, before Lucy was there, they had their suitcases kind of, they had come under the stage and put the suitcases with the manufactured animal totem in each, right? And so and they put it in the sand in front, and that nobody seemed to have noticed them do. No one dug any of them up. Anyway, so I told the story. The drumming sounded. I walked off. I mean, the drumming was there in my whole story, but it got to a louder pitch and the right frame. And I kind of went off to the side and sat in a chair and started to meditate. And the guys just appeared. And everyone was like, whoa, where'd they come from? Right? And they're basically half naked, covered in, urine soaked mud with feathers and stones and all kinds. And their masks are crazy looking masks. And they have didgeridoos, and they have really nice pieces of wood. And they're reproducing the sound of the ancient animals, the turtle and the ant. And they're moving around and through the crew of the group that's standing there. They're not clumped up because I had to make a circle around, a 200, so they're spaced, and so they're like really, doing the didgeridoo. The drummers are doing the drumming. Guys are with the sticks. They're getting people into And I had told, as I was telling the story, I was telling people, you need to get into state. And I showed them how to breathe at 20% and out to 30%. And so some of the people were, people who meditated. So they were, enough were building an energetic field. Um, and so they um, went and dug through in the sand and pulled out the red Samsonite suitcase and put them, they were like 6 or 7 of these guys spread out across 200 feet. And they, kneeled in front and they had it so the Samsonite suit would open up to the crowd. And so one at a time, they would, do a animation quabri. And first they'd open up and people would see that, they'd, put the totem out on a piece of cloth they had in the suitcase and moved the suitcase up to the side and then kneeled in front of it and did a ceremony, and that piece of wood became animated, turned into a snake, turned into a iguana, turned into a fish, turned into a bird, turned into a dingo. And, they just went down the line and did the ceremony and brought it all up to a fire that no one saw anyone build, but these guys had a fire. Of course, they used, wood soaked in kerosene, so the thing would, it was just kind of bark that was in the suitcase that they kind of put out in front, and bingo, the thing, right? And they started to dance along with the drumming. And then other Indians who danced came and, there was maybe 30 people dancing. And I kind of got from my meditative state, came off the stage, came down and started, telling people, yeah, you can join, you can dance around this fire, come on. So not all 300 people, but at least 100 people were dancing with the other 30 or so Aboriginal folk of America and Canada and other places that had come. And the Aborigines were in the inner circle, almost in the fire, where the people were dancing around them. So, and by that time, it had gone down, and so their shadows were coming. The fire's burning bright, and they're like almost in the fire, and their shadows of playing their instruments and dancing is going, and the sparks, they're throwing, sawdust, and it's sparking up, and they're going way up into the sky. And the most amazing thing was the sun had more or less, set, but the World Trade Centers were, almost 2,000 feet up in the air. So the top 3/4, as the sun was setting, those buildings were set where these very reflective edges of that, it's a rectangular building, were set like this. So the east and west sides of the building had a big reflective surface going from the top of the building to the bottom of the building. It was like a mirror, and it was wide. It wasn't like this. It was like, a good 10, 15, 20 feet wide. And when the sun would rise, this bright, and it was, clear, there'd be a bright red line going, it would rise or fall, whichever way the sun was reflecting on it. And so when everyone was dancing, if you looked at the building, there was a big red line on both of the World Trade Centers. And the North Clown, which got hit first, was really strange because instead of them being equal, they were like this. The South Tower got hit second, but fell first. And so it almost looked like that red line was falling down, right? So it's very strange. And then it became dark, and and so the other musicians came down and played into the night, and the Aboriginal brothers stayed in thing, but then started mixing with everyone, and everyone realized that these guys spoke English, and spoke English really well. Were very clear-headed and clear spoken, but they were basically naked, covered in urine soaked. I mean, they smelled it, urine smoked mud with feathers, and the creatures that weren't running around still were now basically that, and the end of their part of the ceremony, and the fire was kind of it wasn't as bright, and it was amazing how their shadows went down the beach. They looked like giants. I mean, they're really small guys, but their shadows were humongous, right? And they threw the animal totems into the fire, and that was another woo. And people basically stayed there. We all stayed there until sunrise. The fire just kept burning on the remnants of those effigies until the sun rose. And then we all stayed out there. I mean, people went away, but there were still at least 50 people when the sun rose, right? And all of the majority of the people of the Aboriginal folk who came to be part of this stayed for the whole thing. Now they had blankets and stuff, and things that they could throw on the sand and lie down or sit down, and folding chairs and all that kind of stuff. And between like 3 a.m, they all had their own hooch, and so we went from ceremonial to more good times, sharing, right? And it was really great. And so when the sun rose and we cleaned up the stuff, we put it in the garbage bags, put it on the West Street. The garbage man was going to come by on Monday and pick it up, and now it was Sunday. And I said, you know what we should do? And there were maybe 25 or so of the Aboriginal folk. A lot of people said, oh, I got to go to church, or I got to go do this, or I got something to do. But there were about 25 of us left. And a few of the crowd, became more than the crowd, were part of this. So there were maybe 40 of us all told. And I said, what we can do is we can go to Marie's, which was another sloppy Joe, kind of, lunch, breakfast spot. And she was open. She was like Dave's Diner. She was like Dave's been, for the last 100 years, And and Dave's Diner was world famous, for its egg creams. And hers, she had breakfast. She was like it was like, the Waffle House, but it was hers. And it wasn't on their color scheme. Her color scheme was more like pink grease. So she had sausage, she had waffles, she had eggs any style, she had omelets, she had what she called a cheesy Western, which was a burger with cheese and an egg, and this relish she made on a burger, right? And that was the closest she got to a burger, right? Was a cheesy Western, because she was more or less breakfast 24/7. So we went there. We got there maybe 7, 8 o'clock. We had really like knock your socks off coffee. Nothing like frou-frou espresso or cappuccino, but just coffee. If you were asleep, this would wake you up. And egg creams. She had egg creams, and she had also milkshakes, ice cream sodas, and what else? That was it. And if you know her, she had a bottle under the table. She would spike it for you. So and I lived down in that neighborhood before anyone did, before it was Tribeca. So, and I was a Radio Row guy, so she knew Radio Row, so I knew her a long time. She knew Grandpa Stahl too. Grandpa Stahl was the guy who took me to her. So we had breakfast there, and we had more people than she had seats at her diner. So what did she do? She opened up the door, and she had a like patio that was amazing, really beautiful, a garden. She grew stuff back there, and it got the sun from the east, like between buildings. It was bright back there. Everything down in Tribeca, because they all these buildings are tall and they're right next to each other. It's like Wall Street. It's like a street of wall and all these buildings, very dark. Um, so light went right into her little backyard there, and she actually had an apartment. She lived back there, right? So she opened that up, and there were tables and chairs, and we basically, most of us, sat back there. All of us sat back there because her other clientele were in the front. So we sat there and we had our breakfast, and that was pretty tasty. And then we went to Trinity Church, oldest church in New York, really it's right across from where the World Trade Centers are. And so we went and had went to Trinity and went to service. And Kaufman, who was the bishop of the big cathedral up near Columbia, would do the early morning because building. They had they did have a guy who ran the place, but he was old and kind of feeble. So different folks. I mean, Bishop Sheehan used to go there and do mass, and so Kaufman, who was like the peace activist, uh, religious guy in New York, all the anti-war, anti-bomb, anti-badness. If you went to Kaufman, he let you have an office in his basement of his cathedral, and that came with water and lights and copying machine and phones and coffee. So he was there, and so he had heard about what had happened, but couldn't get down there. But he heard that it had gone on all night and into the day. And then we show up, and I didn't know he was going to be there, but I knew him very well. And he was really, really glad. And he spoke about indigenous people and his time in South America and what was going on in El Salvador and Costa Rica and in Argentina and Chile. And he, was really right on. And this is like, 1979, before really, Ronald Reagan made it very obvious with Iran Contra. And so that took an hour or so, and we all, were deeply involved in the ceremony. And he got us, the guys who still have their, the Aborigines guys, still have their bags with them. They walk with, just leave it in the car. They didn't have a car; they came by cab. The other guys who had cars left most of their stuff, but some folks, because the Aborigines had their instruments, brought their guitars or their drums, and they didn't have any music for that thing, so we played during the service and after the service, and that church too has a lot of offices for social activity, so they have a very nice commons room that goes these big doors open out into the cemetery, which is like a park. It's beautiful, right? Big trees, and the tombstones are like from the 1600s. And so we sit out there. The ladies who run it, got the coffee things and the donuts, and so we eat a little of that and drink coffee. And it's now turning, towards 1 or 2 o'clock, and we want a little more substance. And they actually have a bus. This church does. And so the lady goes, so Al, what one of these fine restaurants can you take us to? And I said, oh, let's go to the Miracle Grill. That's appropriate for this. It's Sunday, you know. And what time is it? Oh, it's about 2 o'clock. The big rush will be over. Lynn will be happy to see us. So we all trundle, all 30 of us, get in their bus, and she drives down East Broadway over to the Bowery, goes up the Bowery to Second Avenue, and there's a gigantic section right in front of the Miracle Grill where the bus parking space has been waiting for us. So we park there, get out, trundle out, and Lynn's out in front of a restaurant smoking a cigarette. And she sees me, and all these indigenous, I mean, every kind of people, and then, sweet grandma white ladies, and one of them's driving the bus, and, Bishop Kaufman and she knows who he is. And she's like looking at us going, really? And I said, yeah, Lynn. And all these guys got instruments, and she plays piano. And she's got a piano in her restaurant. And her restaurant, the Miracle Grill, became really super duper yuppie fancy. She made like 50 grand a week, because there was no really fine. And, Bobby Flav got his first job with Lynn. If you ever go talk to Bobby Flav and say, do you ever work in a Miracle? So they were famous for amazing steaks, lobster, and pastries, because we were surrounded by these German bakers, and really great bread and soup and a salad, really good salads, right? And she had a farm, so she made this garlic soup that would knock your socks off. And so garlic, broccoli, and artichokes, really amazing. And then 2 special soups, whatever day it was, 2 special soups. So that was it. Vegetable, steak, lobster, baked goods, soup, right? Salad. And so, and her salad was, she would get grandma from Luna's to make an antipasta, big tubs of antipasta. And that would be the salad. And so and the bar. And that's what made, and she had 4 other Miracle Grills, one in the West Village, one in Brooklyn, that one, and one more. And then right at the hiatus of the 90s, when everything was money, 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 and she was just, each of those things was pulling in like 50 grand. She sold them all. She got, oh, you have to have this. I'll pay you anything. Pay me anything? Good. How about $5 million? No problem. And then she would walk away. And so she made a lot of money in the 8 or 9 years that she ran the thing, and maybe even longer, maybe 12 years. She started sometime in the 80s and went all the way through the 90s, right? And in the 90s, she went back to the farm. And anyway, so we show up, and this one, because it got so popular, it was a small little restaurant, right? It had been, a haberdashery. It had been some kind of dry goods store, and then been empty for years, and that's why she got a long lease for nothing. And me and her boyfriend and her fixed it up the way she, Western. And I found a really amazing bar, and we stuck that bar against a blank wall, and she had a big window. We took that out and put up these kind of garage door glass things that would roll up. So she could put 4 or 5 tables out on the sidewalk, because that sidewalk was pretty wide. And you could do that. They started in New York letting restaurants do that. She got a little permit, paid them some money. And so that increased her dining by maybe 6 to 8 tables, maybe 20 people. And so, and that was the ambiance of the street coming in, and there was no really bad smells. There weren't no, sewer lines nearby. And in the winter, she would roll the thing down, and people could still sit out there, but, they'd have to go through these doors. So when it really started to boom, we went and she had a big lot in the back. That was part of her property, but an alley kind of went to one side of it, but there was, so what we do, I went and got an awning guy, and he built a clear plastic awning, from the two walls over the whole thing, and the alley was turned into. I got the building department to declare it a fire exit, and that way she could have 120 people in that place, right? Because then they could get out. And that alley really just went into her backyard, didn't really go to any other building. So city said, okay, this is, and they put a gate there that had, a panic door. And so that was that place. So then we come in around 2 o'clock. It's still, people are still there, but pretty much everyone's moved out, and the backyard is open. And she had a fire pit there, and a gas fire pit for ambiance, and a waterfall. We put a waterfall on the back wall, and we all went back there and had steak and lobster and all the other accoutrements and got schnookered. Even the old church ladies got schnookered, and everybody played their music, and we went on because on Sundays the thing closed at around 2, and we just got there like at 1:30. And Bobby was still flipping the steaks, and he came out, and it was a grand time had by all. But that wasn't, that was Lynn's place. I mean, that was like a normal thing. That stuff like that happened every day, and she was pretty much open 7 days a week. And and the people who, once that place got really famous and the rich people went there to hang, people who were the whatchamacallits, the servers, they made $1,000 a tour, right? And easy. You can make up to, if you're really moving hard and really, you know, entertaining, you might make 2 grand for just 6 hours. I mean, it was the best paying gig, and she made 50 made after all her expenses, 50 grand. I can't book on that, but she was doing, and she had 4 of these things, and in really the best of spots. They were all. The one in the West Village was just down the road from the Paris Commune, which is another great restaurant, and the one in Brooklyn was over where the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge, and there are all these amazing loft buildings that were thrown up there during World War II to make widgets for the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And then in the 60s, they're about, and that's where the clock tower had their big printing presses, right? When you're on the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, you'd see the big clock tower. And if you look over there are all these, and it's right on the water. There are these 2 amazing old bridges on either side, and there's maybe 30 buildings that are each maybe 10 to 20 stories high, brick, concrete, elevators, built in the 40s. And it was instantaneous artist. They call it boho or something like that. And when people started, and guys like guy who owned OK Harris, he bought one of those and would put artists. He couldn't afford having artist lofts in Soho, so he would give his artists that he was carrying, like Judy Rivka was one of these people. So that's how I found out about this place, because Judy, who's a really good buddy of mine, and Marilyn Minter, also a good friend. What was his name? Owned OK Harris. His name will pop into my mind. And his buddy owned Max's Kansas City, another great place. So anyway, I went there, and no place to, period. I mean, you had to go over the bridge into Chinatown or Little Italy if you wanted something to eat, which you could do because the Brooklyn Bridge had a walkway, and it was right there. And a staircase, actually kind of was a ramp right from that neighborhood all the way up, because the people would live in the Lower East Side and work in those factories. So that's when they built the walkway, World War II, the Brooklyn Bridge. I think it was always there, but it became a big thing then. And so um, I took Lynn over there. I said, Lynn, I walked her into, what was that guy's name? he had the ground floor. It was gigantic. It was like maybe, you know, 10, 15,000 square foot ground floor. And it had been a workers, all the workers were actually came down there and they had like a cafeteria, it was like a cafeteria setting. And one wall was brick because it was against another wall, but the other three walls were all gigantic glass, right? From floor to ceiling, looking out onto the East River. It was one, right? And they, had a walkway. And if you, the glass wall facing that, if you just put up like we had in the other place, cut a hole and put those garage doors that went up and down, it had, the sidewalk was like, 100 feet from the building to the road. So easily you could put like a little chain link fence and put, 20 or 100 tables out there. I don't know how many. She had a lot of tables, and she had music and dancing, and that whole brick wall was a gigantic bar, and that was like a printing press, that thing was. And, for the first year or so, she was only, and she, had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and into, a cabaret license, had music and booze and dancing. It was the best, and like at the 90s, Bill Clinton, she just said, okay, I had enough of this. And she did it for 12 years. And she had done it for 10 years for how she got the know-how and connects to do it. She had worked for other restaurants, big fancy restaurants in Midtown, when she showed up from Texas, And so she had been in New York at least a good 25 years that I knew her before she sold everything and moved her. And she had this beautiful farm that she used to grow her vegetables for her restaurants. She was, farm to plate before anybody. She was doing that in the 70s and 80s. And that's where she is now, up in her farm with her family, and her husband was a music file. He sold records. He collected and sold records. So he had a pretty good business doing that. And their son became a world famous drummer, a studio drummer. And he has a band he plays. He goes on tour. He opens for other big bands. But he's got this mop, he's a great guy too. So anyway, that's Lynn. That's the Miracle Grill. And that's the end of the Dream Time. Fans out across the planet and into the stratosphere, other planets, we went into the sun and went to other galaxies, And that's where the name of Dreamy Dreamland came from. So only 4 of you. It only took 3 hours to tell that story. You're still on board, Captain. Well, attaboy, bud. So Buddy has been on for almost 3 hours. You pretty much heard the whole frigging story, right? What were we tripping on? Oh, the experience, alcohol, and a little marijuana. Let's see what the chat has been around. Buddy's the only guy who's been chatting. Yep, he came on from the beginning. Yeah, I got to eat more plants. Less bread. Freak out. God have mercy. What a RA. Yep. I've never used or ever had a gun. Well, actually, I met my friend J.P. Hogan, who in 3rd grade, right, we were both new kids there. And, there were the kids who had been going to the school since kindergarten. And there was a group who were so there was the pretty girls and the popular boys, the athletes, the this, the that. And then there were us, the out of the loop folk, ahead of their time, behind the time, whatever it was. They would just go. People would just look at us and go, eh. So it made a very interesting crowd, and I've told you stories about that crowd. But the first day I was there, my first friend, right, and I went to this school, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. Time I was in eighth grade, I was the dude. I was ready for high school. I was going to be the dude in that high school, and my parents sent me to a seminary to become a Catholic priest. And to the day my mother died, she said, "You wanted to be a priest. You begged us to go to that seminary." Yeah, really? They nearly freaking killed me. If the cardinal wasn't my freaking godfather, I'd be dead. He came and saved my butt. Anyway, so first guy I meet is J.P. Hoagland, right? And I'm just wearing a T-shirt, pair of jeans, and sneakers. That's it, right? And it's like September. It's still warm in Long Island. And, I'm pretty streetwise. I came from Harlem, and I had my own crew in Harlem. So I knew how to read people really well. And I was a silent kid, And because that nun had beat me up in first grade in Freeport, so my mouth and eye hadn't really got its act together yet. I sure talk like this. I never talked that much. I just observed everything. And I explained the other night how I can narrow the perspective so I can see what's going on energetically on the side, right? So, I'm just, I sit down, I, get my, no, I had, my mom gave me, she didn't realize for 35 cents I could get lunch. So my first day, she gave me peanut butter and jelly sandwich, an apple, banana, and a nickel for a carton of milk. So, I'm sitting there, looking in my bag. I get the banana out, the apple out, and this kid comes out, and he's wearing a jacket, a vest, a shirt with a tie, black pants, nice shoes. And I look at him, and his jacket is screaming plaid, his red, his vest is screaming plaid green. He's got a red and green tie on a maroon shirt, black pants, white socks, black shoes. And he's a shrimp like me, right? And and I'm sitting at this, cafeteria table, nobody else. Well, the rest of the place is crowded and people are talking. He goes, "Is anyone else sitting here?" I said, "No." He says, Can I join you?" I said, "Sure, have a seat." He sits down and he goes, "My name is J.P. Hoagland." I said, "J.P." And I say, "Sure." Today, and no one seems to want to be my friend. I said, "JP, why? You are a classy dresser, man. You are stud." And he goes, "You think so? My mother dresses me." I said, "Well, she's doing a fine job." Anyway, so we're talking about this and that, and he goes, "Do you want to see my gun? Guns can be many things, So I go, "Sure." So he does this. He opens up, he unbuttons the vest a little bit, and he pulls out a real Walter PBK. Now, I've been watching James Bond movies, and I know what it looks like. And I go, and I see it say, Walter. And I said, "Is that a Walter PBK?" "Yes, James Bond's." I said, "Yeah, I know. It's got an extra." "Yeah, I know." I said, "Does it jam?" He goes, "Not if you clean it regularly. Take care of it. Good gun maintenance is and he's going on about gun safety and gun maintenance. And as he's doing it, he takes the clip out, and he had a one in the chute. He takes that, takes it out, rolls it on the table, then proceeds to take the napkin, takes the paper napkin, puts it on the table, and takes the gun apart, the barrel, the casing, the chamber. He's got it all out in front of him on the napkin. And we're in there's teachers there. There's no, safety officers yet. But there's kids, no one's even looking at us. We are so invisible that This kid can pull out a loaded gun, take it apart, show me the parts, put it back together, put it in his vest, time. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, you are my friend, JP. you know, he goes, I've been studying martial arts also and dance. I said, so, yeah, he's now my new friend, right? And so every day he comes and he goes, it's Friday. Maybe you could sleep over. I said, well, yeah, I think that's cool. I mean, where do you live? She goes, well, just really here in town. It's just 2-3 blocks walk. It's no big deal. And where my parents live, this was a place called Glen Head in the North Shore School District. It was Glen Cove, Glen Head, Oyster Bay, a couple other little towns that made up the North Shore School District. And it was relatively new because they had taken all the little chunks and turned it into a new school system as things were changing from being a farm estate kind of place to, people building little cul-de-sacs of houses. And they, the Miracle Mile was starting to be built and there's a mall going up. Anyway, so I go, sure, I think, and so, I know where that is. And it's, not too far from where we live. Maybe my mom would drive. It would be maybe, no more than 8 miles, and we lived in what had been a farm. Some guy bought a little chunk out of the farm from Mr. Young and built a little 4 or 5 houses, and he lived in one and he sold the others. And my dad bought one of them, right? So, and the land he got 6 acres. And it was like the guy who did this had bought the land, cleared it out, made it into lots. And the lot that my dad bought, he turned into a nursery of trees and bushes and stuff that he would put around the house that he was going to build. And so he first built the house for himself, right? And then he, every year he would build a house and sell it to somebody, right? And after about the 4th house, he got tired of it. And there were a bunch of lots doing this. So he said, well, I'll wait till the market gets better. I'll build some more. So that was Old Brookville. That's what my dad, living room and a giant, whatever you call it, with big vaulted ceiling, gigantic window looking out onto the 8 acres and all these great bushes and stuff. And what it had a 3-acre lawn. And so my dad got a lawn guy to cut the grass like a golf course. So he had a place that was a good 100 yards and he had a green, right? And then he had some, bunkers put in and he had other greens. So in that 4 acres, it looked like not a mini golf course, but a 4-hole golf course. So he could practice, right? Because that's one of his tools of business was the golf course. And so anyway, JP takes me home, and I'm going, well, because I was at the end of the bus line. I mean, getting on at the school, even though my house was only 8 miles from the school, that bus went through God's creation all over the place. And it took an hour. So I knew that I could walk to JP's house and call my mom from there. And she would, be on her 7th cocktail and not want to come and get me. So she'd be happy. Oh, that guy's mom wants you to stay over. Sure, no problem. Can she bring you here? I said, yep. She already said she could. So I saved the night. But before that, when I walked in, there JP's mom was looking like Donna Reed. I mean, just beautiful, and she had a dress on and she had an apron and she had 2 pearl-handled 45s on either side of her. And she was making bread and cookies and a cake and dinner. And we walk in and she goes, oh, JP, this is your new friend. I'm so happy you could come and spend the night with us and da-da-da-da-da, right? So I did. And these people 8 lived guns. Their grandfather started the thing that became the National Rifle NRA, right? And they came from Utah, right? But in one generation they came east, and everyone had a gun. The girls had the gun. His brothers had guns. They all were packing. They all had permits. They were all legal. And down in the basement had a 50 caliber machine gun that they would practice. They had big long gun range, right? And they had the things where the little would take the wire out and you. So I learned how to shoot with those guys. Those guys taught me everything about guns. And years later, when I was working for Bobby Bentnose and Tommy Two Toes, and I succeeded, or I was about to succeed, so they could lighten up on making me, be a indentured servant and staying in the nightclub till I got it done. They took me, about to open in about a week. I was done. Who gave them the money to do this? Show it to them. So, okay, we're not going to kill you, So, and I knew Luna, so we all went down to Luna's first for dinner with Mama Luna, and then we went to. They had a gun. It was called East Manhattan's Gun Club. Have guns, right? They had a gun club. So they took me to that, and it was a very nice place. They had a nice dining room, and it was, and all they had was rare roast beef, mashed potatoes, and they had pretty good vegetables. Mike Finelli's bread and lobster, and lobster Newburg, and pasta. That was it, and a really good hot antipasta. Anytime, anywhere, that's it, right? So, and it had a big hall, so they could have big events, weddings. Tony Bennett used to sing there. So they take me there, and pretty much have to be a made man to get in this door. Meaning the other underlings didn't get to go, but because the guys who were the godfathers. This was their club, and only made men could come. Tony and Bobby were both made men, and because I, sparked this, I was given a dispensation to come, and that I was fixing. That's all those godfathers knew me through Mike Finelli because I was fixing their Rube Goldberg parking lot with the bowling alley on top and the roller derby girls. So, and I was, manufacturing and fixing their peep shows, right? So all these guys knew me. So I was as close to a made man and I wasn't. And I wasn't, a Goomba, and I wasn't any of the other little stereotypes they had. I was Tony's godson. I was Mike's godson. I was, Big Billy's godson. They all call me, this is my godson. So, and I was all their electricians. I fixed their electrical, and I was always on budget and on time, and they never had to worry about anything, right? And I was honest as the day was long. And one thing that crooks really like are honest people to them, because if not, they'll kill you, right? And I respected them. I treated them like I would treat my godfather. My grandfather, right? Not my godfather, my grandfather. And so by the time I went to this place, I was 24 or 5. And I've spent 6 years with the Holden family. We've gone hunting with them, gone on gun retreats with them, could break down an AK-47, I was schooled, right? Gun safety, right? And gun maturity. So, we have a nice cocktail or two. We sit on the veranda and smoke spliffs. We have, then have a nice dinner of roast beef, lobster, and baked goods and more booze. And then we got our snifters and we walk downstairs, right? And they have a really nice, I mean, this place is, they have the long concrete thing with bullet ricochets and the things that go down on wires. And they have on one side this like mechanics drawers, and it was full of pistols, any kind of pistol you wanted. And over here was these big lockers with any kind of rifle you wanted. So they said, let's shoot, So they all picked out a gun and they all started, they weren't. I said, you got any earmuffs? Earmuffs. I said, how about earplugs? Earplugs. So they have all the right stuff in another drawer that nobody uses. And so I had earplugs, earmuffs, and, tinted glasses, right? And I don't go get a gun because, they're like hillbillies, one guy's got this AK, and so they go, don't you want to shoot, Al? And Mike says, he told me that he knows how to shoot. Now, none of these, some of them barely hit the target, the outline of the guy with the, right? And I said, okay. And I kind of go through the things, and I said, are these loaded? And they go, well, the drawer underneath each gun is, and they're all pretty much automatics. They had, so, there's a Glock there. I like a Glock. Glock's well balanced, well made, a premium gun. So take the Glock, open it, look at it, get a clip, put it in there, and walk up to the line. Just go. I empty the whole clip into the bullseye. Because the whole thing about shooting a gun is when you pull that trigger, you shouldn't be breathing, right? And a Glock is a very steady gun, doesn't really have a big recoil. And you can just squeeze bullet after bullet after bullet after bullet. And if you're not moving that gun, it's going to go where the other bullet went. So if you got a bullseye, the first one, the other 9 or 8 or however many are in a clip, is going to go there. And they were all like, the guy goes, how are you with a rifle? And I said, caliber sniper, right? And I go, no, not, you got to be kidding me. I said, you guys ever shoot this thing down here? And they said, no, no one had the guts. No one knew, I said, and it's a Molly. I mean, it's a sniper's weapon. So it kind of comes in parts, right? So, in the drawer, and this is so I just stuck it together, put the bolt in, took one shell. I said, okay, give me another new, paper thing. And I said, okay, guys, you better be ready for this. So, I said, okay, I'm looking around for sandbags, and there aren't any. And it doesn't have a tripod. So I look around and I see this nice chair. So I don't rip it out, but the cushion kind of comes out. I put the cushion on the little thing in front so you can't walk into the line of fire. And I lay the gun on there, and I'm looking through it, and boom-o, right? And that sucker was so loud. It was even loud, and I had earplugs and earmuffs, and the gas that comes out of it, because no one had cleaned or used this thing since I got it. And it just sprayed everyone with oil, right? And I had taken my T-shirt and took it out of my thing and tied it around my face because I knew this thing was just, and they're all covered in oil, and they can't, what did you say? They can't hear anything for the next hour. So that's my gun motif. So I can shoot a gun. Now I have not shot a gun since that day. And that was in, when did I do that? I met Donna. So that had to be 70, when did 76, maybe 70, maybe early 77. I have to look up when that place opened. Super Deluxe, yep. Song lines. Awake and very awake. Treats, yep. Yep, station work, yep. Christ. Nice. Let's see, wow. How about that? 49 for Life Club, yep. Do. Still around. That a boy. Good Tucker, right, buddy? Good Tucker. Well, there's now a big 4-5, and the crowd is joining. Well, gang, you're going to have to go watch this from the beginning because that last little story was just, a wee bit of the whole story. So, anyway, let's see. What time is it? Oh, it's almost 11. It stopped raining. That's good. And I've been talking for 3.5 hours. So remember, I love you, and I'll see you tonight. Maybe sometime. It was this. Yeah, this worked. No breaking up. No. Maybe it's I called this bunnies, pink unicorn, and puppies. I guess that didn't catch the ire of the algorithm. Okay. Well, have a good day. I'll talk to you later.